And again, thank you.
Intro. You got the intro, right, Andrew?
Oh yes, I got the intro.
Okay.
And we
Ready when you
are
are.
going to be live now. Hey everybody, you're watching and listening to the We Are Rizin podcast. This is your host, Andrew Benjamin, and I'm joined once again by my beautiful and handsome co-host, Jay Christian Gary from Focus Fights.
Well, I don't know about handsome and beautiful, but what's good, y'all? And we got two special guests for y'all to enjoy on this very, very special edition of our show. One is Charles Jewett, aka CJ's Report, or the owner, operator, manager of Sogo-Kaku. The other is Jack Wannan, the owner, operator, manager of Knockdown News. Charles is in Tokyo. Jack is in Toronto. How are you guys doing?
Well, to you, Jack.
Okay, well, I gotta say it's great to be back on here. We're sort of following the tradition of tension facing three opponents with three people now attacking Andrew's opinions on this episode. So I'm looking forward to it.
It should be a lot of fun. June's been quite the month for MMA, so we've got a lot going on.
Speaking of Jack, by the way, congratulations also on MMA-Prospects. Your new gig with them as well.
Thank you. I'm looking to do more JMMA stuff on there too. I haven't fully done it too much, but soon I'll be doing more on there. I promise.
And Charles, you're fresh off. Speaking of MMA this month, you were able to go to all the 4 million of the deep shows this past weekend, correct?
Yeah, quite the deep overdose. 4 shows in 1 weekend.
How were the deep? How was deep? I don't even know what shows they were. I know there's Deep Jewels and Deep. How were the shows overall?
I would just describe it as Saturday was kind of like the up and comers, the prospects, and Sunday was the actual deep card with the Deep Jewels card, and it was absolutely awesome. It was amazing. Seika Izawa is going to be a stud. Already is a stud.
So when do we tell King Reina to quit MMA?
Well, I mean, it seems almost like she's into doing the pro wrestling angle of it more now. I mean, when she came out with a lollipop bigger than I've ever seen before. It was like an actual staff with a big giant lollipop, and she walked around the cage, did her whole thing. But as long as she doesn't mind getting punched in the face 1,000 times, I think she can keep doing it.
Because I saw the photos. Chris, did you see the photos of her after her fight?
Yeah.
No, I did not. Quite frankly, I don't want to watch somebody waste their career knowing damn well that they shouldn't have had a career to begin with. But when it comes down to King Reina Miura, yeah, I think one more devastating loss should help her put the gloves in the middle of the ring or cage and call it a career.
So I don't know if you, Charles, I don't know if you saw the Timothy Johnson, Valentin Moldavsky fight from yesterday on Bellator. Jack, you saw that fight, right?
Yeah, I saw that.
You saw how badly Tim Johnson bled open, and I think it was the 4th round, or 3rd round. Yeah, that was what King Reina's face kind of looked like. A good comparison. Against I don't even know who Yoko Huigashi is. Was that her? She's kind of like a journeywoman type fighter.
No, actually, it was kind of booked as like a Pancrase versus Deep fight, and she trains with Shizuka Sugiyama and them at Miwe, like Kanako Murata and them. And she was actually a high-level judoka who transitioned to MMA. She's like a single mom who does MMA now.
Oh, and also, Charles, I just wanted to say we give our condolences to Kana Watanabe as well.
I was about to say I did not see the Timothy Johnson fight because Bellator may have been abruptly shut off at my house.
Well, listen, we still love Kana. She got things to improve on, but I think she'll be back. She'll be back in the winner's column in no time.
Yeah,
exactly.
Of course.
But before we get into the Rizin 29 show, Jack, I know we did not have you on for Rizin 28. I'm just curious to know, what did you think of the show overall? Just tell us your brief thoughts on Rizin 28.
Well, what I thought was interesting about it was sort of like a sprint of very big fights for Rizin. We saw interesting crossovers where someone like Bainoa made his MMA debut. We saw a very big step-up fight for Sudario, which he ended up losing. And then we saw the 4 tournament fights and the title fight and the Mikuru Asakura fight. So overall, it was just such a stacked card. It's almost sort of like a weird come down feeling with this event where, we do have tons of talented names on this card, but compared to the Tokyo Dome show, it is, it's hard to compare, honestly. But that show, it was halfway through it, there was sort of this feeling of like, okay, this is sort of a weird show. Like a lot of fights are going the distance, and then all of a sudden, like it just sort of it hit this stride. All of a sudden, it became this extremely explosive show in the second half. Overall, quite the show. For anyone who missed it, definitely worth a watch.
What was your reaction? I wish everybody, we all could have like cameras on our faces when Tofik took on Souza, because my mouth was like that. How was your reaction when Souza beat Tofik the way he did?
Yeah, well, I think the thing is with Souza is that I picked him to win the fight, but every time he goes out there, he sort of proves that we all doubt him a little bit too much. Even when we pick him to win fights, we don't pick him to win fights in such an incredible way. And he really showed that. The fight was so quick, but everything you saw from him was just extremely impressive, honestly.
It's so funny. I think you're the only person who's at least communicated to me that they picked Souza. Everybody here picked Tofik.
Well, but you guys mentioned on the podcast, and this was something that played a huge factor into it, was that Tofik was out for a long time and he wasn't necessarily training for a long time. He had military duties. So I thought that was going to be something that could have completely messed with him.
So it looks like military duties are not the best base for MMA.
And quarantining in a hotel.
The quarantine hotel for 14 days. Curious to know as well, what do you think of the Saito Karimov fight? Did you think that Karimov won, or did you think Saito won? And what did you think of the absurd amount of cheating that was going on in that fight?
Well, I mean, it was a really close fight. Personally, when they were going to decision, I thought Karimov took the fight. I'm not really angry that it went one way or another. I know there's, people posting. I saw there was that screenshot on Twitter of like the timestamps of like all the times he grabbed the rope. I mean, honestly, he got yellow carded for it, if I remember correctly. And like the amount of times he grabbed the rope doesn't really change my way of judging the fight, because it's about how many times you get caught. I mean, that's the thing about cheating. It's about how many times you get caught, not how many times you actually do it. But I thought it was a really close fight. And from what people have said, it seems like the Rizin judging system favored more of what Saito was doing in the fight.
What is it? What's it saying? It's only cheating if you get caught, or it's only a crime if you get caught.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm. Yep, exactly.
Sorry, Charles. I just want to also quickly bring up: is Ryo Sakai is he confirmed alive or dead after that fight with Saint?
What? Oh, I mean, that was actually hilarious. His reaction after that. That was a interesting fight. I look forward to seeing what Saint does in the future.
Yeah. So for those that don't know, Saint is this? I think he's American, at least.
I believe he is. Yes, he's
American
a very
fighter.
Deep is trying to develop heavyweights.
They are. I can't fault them for trying to develop heavyweights. And literally picking fighters that are making their pro debut who have no other amateur, as far as I know, no other amateur fights, and who are. Hey, listen. They know how to scout. And also, here's the other thing as well. Do they purposely give weird names to their fighters? Because I was looking at all they got fighters named like T and Hart.
Yeah.
Is that something? Is that a deep thing, or is that a fighter trying to sound different thing?
It's a fighter thing. It's like I don't know how familiar. Like I remember back when I was in college, there's like this big social media site over here called Mixi, and no one in Japan used their real name. They all used fake names. Like all the fighters, like in other examples on Deep Jewels, Otoa Nagao just switched her name to Otoa. So a lot of them just like to have ring names for some reason, and it's fairly common. And there's another example that I can't quite remember, but I do want to mention another really good fight. They're uploading the videos on YouTube. They haven't uploaded the Deep Jewels ones yet, but Saudi Oshima won the atomweight tournament and looked awesome. And she's tiny. She's like 4'11". She's actually their microweight champion. But I bring that up because Sakakibara came only to the Deep Jewels show. Sakakibara wasn't at any of the Deep shows. He came exclusively for the Deep Jewels show, sat front row, and watched Saori Oshima and Seika Izawa's fight. So I wouldn't be surprised if one of them makes the move up to the big league soon.
I hope so. Rizin desperately needs atom weights at this point. Since like badly. That's really funny though that he came there. Actually, here's the funny thing. I think they mistakenly double uploaded their videos that they uploaded yesterday because I subscribed to their channel and their channel had the same videos that they uploaded yesterday re-uploaded today.
I will say that I don't think they're the most tech savvy organization. If you follow Deep Jewels on Twitter, I think they have like 6 Twitter accounts that are all variations of
they
Deep
got
Jewels.
They got like Deep MMA, Deep Jewels Official, Deep 2000. I have no idea which is their real account.
My theory is they keep forgetting their password and just creating new accounts.
I just follow Psyche on Facebook. That's how I keep up with Deep Jewels.
It's actually the best. It's the best source for all Deep and Deep Jewels stuff.
Yes, and also if you love cats as well, because that's what it'll be either cats. His cats, he has like 10 cats or something, like an absurd amount of cats. Drake Riggs interviewed him, and I think he said like there's no such thing as having too many cats or something. I don't know if you ever interacted with him, Charles. The Deep.
He's actually one of the more colorful and hilarious promoters. So he's super chill. He's been around for a really long time, and he's done a lot. So he's a cool guy to talk to.
Okay, that's good. That's good.
I will say the most cats I've ever seen was at Megumi Fuji's house. She has a cat room. I think there was like 12 cats inside of it. This is absolutely nuts. I've never seen so many cats.
I think Reina, doesn't she have like 3 or 4 Frenchies or bulldogs or something?
Yeah, she's essentially a French bulldog breeder now.
So that's why she hasn't been booked at all for Rizin, because she's too busy. Yeah. She's too busy keeping the French bulldog population going on in Japan.
I think Ayaka Hamasaki's French bulldog is from Reina. And I think she also gave one to Rumina Sato.
Oh, that's too funny. That's too funny. Oh my god, that's too funny.
That's what happens when you finish fighting, you become a dog or a cat breeder in Japan.
Sorry to go on that tangent, but the Rise 29 show. Also want to ask about that, Charles. Is it going to be on Fuji TV or is this one tape delayed?
That's not on Fuji TV. It's pay-per-view. So my family and I, my wife and her friends, we ordered it on pay-per-view. It's like 5,000 yen, so a little under $50.
Okay.
And it's gonna be awesome though. They did a really cool thing where like I don't know how the US broadcast is, but in Japan you can watch, like, there's 2 streams going on at the same time. One is kind of like a commentary area with Japanese commentators. It's usually like Kenji Osawa or someone like that. And then there's the actual fights. So it's a pretty nice service they provide.
So when you say the commentaries, do you mean like the commentary?
No, it's like a separate commentary. It's like usually like a comedian and like some retired fighters. And when you get the pay-per-view, you can put in which fighter you got the pay-per-view for. And that's one way that they have metrics for which fighters are moving tickets and things like that.
Is that the thing of the QR code thing on their like Instagrams or Facebooks?
Something like that. Yeah, you put a code in when you order the pay-per-view, and it just lets them know which fighters are the ones drawing in the views.
But in a way, when it comes down to that style of streaming, because you said that they're going to have 2 streams, it'll probably make the English/international stream that Joe Ferraro and Damian Beatdown Brown are going to be doing look like bland in comparison, Oh
yeah, but because I only know about the 2 streams because I made a mistake where I forgot to switch over to the fights, and I'm like, when are these fights going to happen? It's just these people talking on the screen, and they'd already happened. So
yeah, they're basically giving their expert commentary, so to speak, but not trying to say that Joe Ferraro and Damian Brown are bland by any means. They're actually cool people, right, Andrew?
I think we agree that Chris and I don't know what your thoughts were, Jack, but I think they were the best pairing so far in Rizin's I guess we call it the Live Now era. How would you say that Damian Brown and Joe Ferraro fared, Jack?
Yeah, I think that they both did pretty well. If there's one takeaway, it's that this was the most technologically sound broadcast we've ever gotten.
Yes, it
And
was.
you know, honestly, if we were just to stop there, it would be amazing to start. But they did a really good job. Um, Andrew or Charles, I want to ask which fighter code did you use?
My wife will be all over that. She'll probably put the Kentaro in.
Not cozy. I thought
No, no,
every.
she's not a Koji fan.
Is this show sold out, Charles? I don't think it is, but I think it's pretty close to sold out.
It's sold out almost immediately.
Oh, it is.
It's sold out on the pre-sale, from what I'm aware of. Koji is insanely popular in Osaka. And I do another podcast with Shirata, so I was talking to him about it. And like fighter families can't even get in because Koji sold all the tickets before it even went on full sale. Because of the COVID restrictions, it's only 5,000 seats. And Koji could sell out 10,000, 15,000 easily by himself if it's in Osaka.
So this arena, the Maruzan Intech Arena Osaka, I am not familiar with this arena at all. Do you know this? Are you familiar with this arena at all? Is it famous for something?
I don't make my way down to Osaka very often. It's actually like a 5-hour train ride. I think it's actually pretty far away. But if you guys ever followed Babalu Jack, I know he's going to the show, so I'll talk to him afterwards and see what it's like.
Because I'm looking at pictures and it looks mainly like a basketball stadium. And
interesting.
It looks. I can't tell if that's ping pong on the Google Images. It looks like ping pong. I see tables.
Probably is ping pong, Andrew.
You got to think it's like one of those things where they had to rush to find a venue that was available because they had to push it back, and the Olympics are starting mid-July, so they had to find a place that wasn't booked for something and that they could get into to get these shows out of the way before the Olympics takes over everything.
I'm trying to also figure out what a Maruzan Intech is. Is that a company in?
I'll look in 1 second.
Because I was trying to figure because
Maruzan Intech.
Usually a lot of these arenas they'll have like two names. I mean, kind of like the same thing in America. So I wonder if people if it's called the Maruzan Intech Arena in Osaka or if it has like I guess a more colloquial local name that everybody calls it. Kind of like a Shea Stadium and Met Stadium or Citi Field if you're from New York. Is there any arenas like that in Texas, Chris?
Oh yeah, there's plenty of arenas like that. For example, in my neck of the woods alone, when it comes down to newer, would you basically say that the Maruzan Intech Arena is a newer, more spacious arena?
It doesn't look spacious. It actually looks relatively smaller than an arena. I mean, it says here that it can hold.
Well,
10,
in that case, Andrew, and I hate to interrupt, even though it's kind of my thing, I'm gonna try and do less of it, but it's kind of like the Fertitta Center on the University of Houston campus.
Gotcha. Because it says here it has 10,000 seats. Rizin,
my thing is, I'm sorry to interrupt. I imagine what happened was they knew that there was going to be the 5,000 limit, and so they were looking for an arena that would look full, and so they didn't want to have like some giant arena in Osaka where it looks like the crowd isn't very full. Gotcha. So if it's a 5,000 cap, they put it inside of a 10,000 person venue because that also meets the 50% capacity limit and looks more full than say the Tokyo Dome.
Oh, well, the Tokyo Dome is just like unless it's actually full, you're not gonna make it look full. So it's I totally get that.
I thought they did a pretty good job for the broadcast, making it look pretty packed in, just by sectioning off huge areas of the dome and stuff like that.
Well, that's what's kind of funny about it. I'm like, what's the point of this? Was like a 10,000 person limit if they aren't seating people in 3/4 of the stadium.
Well, you see, that's the thing is that in America, so what they would do if there had to, this would probably happen if they had to if MSG had only a limit. Anybody who had seats in the nosebleeds, they would bring them down immediately. They would not want anybody. They would not want any sort of sparse seating or anything. That they would try to bring them as close to down as possible, so that it looks good on television. I know that it's a little bit different in Japan. They don't really. That's not they don't care about the look of it on television so much so as that they actually sold a ticket. That's my guess.
I would tend to disagree with you actually, and kind of lean on what Jack was saying, because my impression was they very selectively sat everybody on one side of the ring.
Okay.
So that when the camera would be shown, they probably only showed on Fuji TV mainly from one side of the ring, so that you could see a ton of people in the background. Because it was kind of like there was like half the stadium had nobody sitting there. So they put everyone on the same side of the ring, I think, so that they could do those sweeping TV angles and be like, look, it's packed, and kind of like do an optical illusion.
I can imagine for Charles, it was almost like the ruined illusion of going to like a Monday Night Raw taping where half the stadium has nobody in attendance and the other side just completely packed.
I was actually laughing more about the fact that the fighters were going in and out of the dugout.
Well,
kind of a funny visual.
That's what they do for pro wrestling shows there. Whenever the losers go out through the dugout and then the winners go back up through the
entrance tunnel.
Yeah. Actually, Chris, so remember New Japan had one of their G1 shows. I think it was in Texas a few years ago. Do you remember that?
Yeah, it was at the American Airlines Center in Dallas.
So with that arena, they did not sell out at all. And I guess what happened was that everybody bought their tickets opposite side of the hard camera. So if you watch the show live, and Chris, I don't know if you saw the show live.
I seen it.
Yeah, like there's nobody hard camera side. They barely filled up the hard camera side, so like it's like basically empty. And New Japan did nothing to like they didn't like come over on this side. It just did not decide to do that. So that's why
basically made the entire venue look empty and cavernous by comparison.
So that's why I was like, oh, maybe Rizin is kind of the same, but no, it sounds like they had the fourth thought to be like, let's make this actually look good on Fuji TV, which totally makes sense. But so on paper, I know you talked a little bit about it, Jack, that obviously this is not the most star-studded show, especially in comparison to the Tokyo Dome show. How do you think it looks on paper, and is there anything that you're looking forward to with this card?
Well, I gotta say, we're coming off a show where there was practically no kickboxing on it. We had kickboxers on it, but none of them fought under kickboxing rules. This is a complete return to kickboxing in Rizin with a one man or one night tournament and some, fights earlier on the card, which are kickboxing rules. Those are going to be interesting. It's going to be great to see the return of some guys on the show. And the fight, to me, honestly, I mean, the tournament is interesting too, but the fight to me that I'm most looking forward to is Yusuke Yachi returning. Seriously, we can make jokes about similar to Taiga being on a losing streak. I think this is a very important fight for him.
We will make jokes.
You will make jokes.
Exactly. But Jack, you almost said this was going to be a one-man show. I seen the VTR footage that was put up by Rizin about this one night kickboxing tournament. And it really felt like Koji Tanaka was sporting the bill, saying, oh, everybody came to see me, which is true because he bought all the tickets. Everybody is coming out to see me. Everybody is wanting to see me, not these other three guys.
Yeah, I mean,
kind of a. Oh, I'm
sorry.
sorry. I mean, Osaka, to me, it's kind of like this hangover effect of you're coming off of such a good card. And I think this is just a thing that Rizin had to put a card on before the Olympics, and they had to advance the tournament. And it's in Osaka. Who's really, really big in Osaka? Oh, Koji's really big in Osaka. And he can sell out a stadium by himself down there. And so why don't we just do this whole kickboxing tournament themed around him, slap the tournament fights on there, get those moving as well, and put a couple more Osaka fighters on it, put Yachi on it because the Yogi-Bo, one of our major sponsors, loves Yachi, and we need Yachi to win to keep that Yogi-Bo money coming in. And then we'll go to the New Year's Eve or the September show after this.
That hangover you mentioned is sort of like the same thing we get first show of the year every year because New Year's Eve is such a big show and then we have a come down. I mean, in my honest opinion, we haven't had a smaller Rizin show in quite a while. So I'm not upset with this card, because we've been pretty much spoiled since New Year's Eve.
Yeah. Plus, I love Iminari, so any Iminari fight, anything could happen. So
Yes,
he's old.
For better,
He's an old
for
man
better
now,
or for
but
worse. For better or for worse, anything can happen.
plus, just to hear his weird porno walkout music and Lenny Hart like
it's not
essentially saying
porno
his name as he comes out.
CJ, it's not porno walkout music. That Sade music is pretty damn legendary. Even more so when Lenny Hart talks in a, seductive
Sultry voice
intro. Yeah.
Did anybody see the VTRs that they released with English subtitles for this show?
Mm-hmm.
Jack or Charles, did you happen to see either of the kickboxing one or the Bantamweight Grand Prix one?
I
have not. I am remaining blissfully unaware until the event happens.
Jack, you said you saw them?
No, I same way with him.
Okay.
I want to save it for the actual show.
I will say, if you are a Yachi fan, you'll get you very emotional when you see the VTR. That's all I'm going to say.
Is this like the nail in the coffin for Crazy B? Like Crazy B losing streak just flies to an unbelievable number.
Hey, listen, good fortune can happen. Listen, this is the year of the underdog. It started with
to be fair.
Sorry,
if he loses, this loss isn't on Crazy B because he's out of the gym now. He's not training there anymore. So to be fair, if he loses this, Crazy B is free of criticism at this point.
But what does it say if he wins?
Well, that's a bigger question. That's a bigger question to ask if he does win. But before we get into the meat of the card, as you did say before, this is going to have a number of kickboxing matches, and that seems to be an Osaka thing. Charles, is kickboxing really that popular in Osaka, or is that just something that Rizin just does? Because it's not.
Ko's usually popular in Osaka.
But I mean, I'm not talking about the tournament so much, but like the prelim kickboxing matches, because they have 4 or 5 kickboxing matches in addition to tournament. So is kickboxing just a little bit more popular there?
I feel like it was just the idea of this card was just kind of make it a kickboxing themed card, since they put so little kickboxing on the Tokyo Dome show, and just kind of put a bunch of kickboxing. I don't think Osaka is necessarily more popular for kickboxing because, I mean, half the fighters on this are Rise fighters, and Rise does most of their shows in Tokyo.
I was going to say, yeah, they do. Also disappointed. I know that this is an Osaka show. We do not have our favorite Osaka fighter, Kyoei Hagiwara, on this show. Our favorite tattooed shit-talking fighter. I was disappointed when I did not see his name on the list. So not so sure why.
I kind of assumed he would be on this card.
I thought so too. It's because if you're talking about somebody who's like new to an up and coming fighter from Osaka as well, he's that guy. I don't know if they just didn't have a fight for him, or I don't know. Like there must have been some reason why he was not on. I don't know. Maybe he got arrested for smoking marijuana or something. I hope not.
Can't afford to have 2 rising fighters arrested in 1 week. So.
Yes.
He hasn't.
Dare bring up Johnny Case.
That wasn't Johnny Case.
He hasn't fought in so long that like my memory almost made me think that he lost his last fight, but then I think back and remember that he like completely dominated his last fight, and I'm like, why is it like, where is he? Because it's been 6 months now.
Who?
Yeah, that's
Hagiwara.
Oh right, yeah, because he was angling for the fight with Mikuru on Twitter, and Mikuru was like saying, you didn't even beat an MMA fighter in your last fight. But part of me thinks they're saving him for something. Part of me feels like Rising just wants to get this card over with, kind of, and move on to the September card.
I get it. No, I totally get it. But before, like I said, before we get into the meat of the card, I think we were just gonna briefly talk about these prelim kickboxing matches, because for the most part, I think we're not gonna be paying attention to all of them except for one of them, and then of course the tournament. So 2 of the prelim kickboxing matches. Yuma Yamahata taking on Kyoto Takahashi, one of 2 Takahashi brothers on this card, by the way. and then
Interesting.
Seki Uyama taking on Jose Izumi. Like I said before, we have two Takahashi brothers. I'm surprised they didn't get the third one. They didn't try to give the third Takahashi brother a kickboxing match. But for this fight, Yamahata taking on Takahashi. Curious to know. So, Jack, I know that we're MMA people. Kickboxing, isn't our forte so much. Are you paying attention to this fight at all by any chance?
Paying attention is, and I'll be watching and writing about it. But if you want me to tell you anything interesting about either of these guys, I'm probably not the best person to ask about it. I don't really know anything about either of these guys, but I mean, they have experience. They're not just some newbies in the sport. So to expect them to put on a good fight probably isn't asking for a crazy amount.
I think Yuma Yamahata. So his last fight for Rizin was being sacrificed to Taiga and losing to Taiga as well. This was so he was
Being
part of
sacrificed to Tiger.
it's the Taiga comeback tour he was a part of. That's what I'm calling it. And yeah, he's fought in Deep Kick. So and Takahashi's been around as well. As you can see, I don't know if you can see his record or however it looks on my thing. So, Charles, any thoughts? Do you have any deep internal or external thoughts about this match?
Not really. I mean, I don't follow kickboxing nearly as closely as I follow MMA, and the kickboxing I do follow tends to be with Rise, and I don't think any one of these guys actually comes from Rise. So
I think Yuma, I think he's had one or two fights in Rise because
really?
the picture looks like it says here copyright Rise. So I'm assuming that this must be from one of his
Oh, he has. He lost. He had a draw, one draw for Rise.
Oh yeah, and Chris, any introspective thoughts on this fight?
Nah. I mean, aside from the fact that Ryo Takahashi is one of three brothers that are making waves in the sport of kickboxing. And I think Yamahata's fighting in his second Rizin fight?
Yeah, this is the second Rizin fight.
Yeah, aside from this, I really don't have a dog in this fight. But I'm not trying to say I don't have any interest in it because when it comes down to this particular fight, I do think that I do think that Ryo Takahashi or Kyoto Takahashi actually is going to be winning this bout. But aside from that, I got nothing. I really don't have no true analysis for this fight, or really the other two that are not of this bantamweight kickboxing tournament. Even though I know that Seiki Uyama and Yoshinari Nadaka, aka Nadaka Iwa Sports, are also going to be fighting in their forthcoming Rizin appearances as well.
No, I totally get it. I don't know what it says about somebody who's lost to Taiga at this point, but Taiga seems to be doing much better. So I don't know if that bears well for Yamahata's future that he lost to such a guy, but I am intensely curious whenever Rizin books like brothers or familial people on a card. I'm always curious to see how one does and how the other does before their fight. I think Charles, remember we talked about is there some sort of connection between like one fighter losing from like brother losing.
Mikado and Kai haven't won on the same card.
Yeah, something like that. So I for shits and giggles, I would like to see Kyoto Takahashi win, because then that means if other brother Takahashi wins in the tournament later, I think it makes it more interesting, but we'll talk about that later. And yeah, Seki Uyama, Jose Izumi. Uyama has been in Rizin many times. He's a shoot boxer. I don't know. Jack, again, any thoughts on this match?
It's very weird. I recognize his name. I've seen him fight in Rizin, 3 times. I can't really name a single thing about him though. But we'll see how he does.
That's the one thing is that it always feels weird whenever they bring like a fighter, like they have a fighter who's like, oh, they have him and he makes a big splash in his Rizin debut, and then you never see him again for another year. And I don't know why that happens a lot. I wish it would happen less. I feel like if somebody comes in and does something memorable or has some great momentum, I think you have to capitalize on that. Like with Hagiwara, you shouldn't have to listen. I think his last fight was a fight where he stepped on the guy's face right after he knocked him out, or like stomped on the guy's face, or at least attempted to.
Oh, right. Yeah, yeah.
So that to me is like, I don't know. That's somebody you got to capitalize on. You can't just have them like, oh, the only time you go to Osaka. I feel like that you have to build on that memento, because then people, like you said, people forget. And Yuyama's a good fighter. And nobody should be forgetting when his last fight in Rizin was, because that's also bad promoting, in my personal opinion.
I would
I
like
don't
to
know.
say, I feel like a lot of this, though, that like a lot of the stuff behind the scenes is a lot of this is like promotional back scratching and keeping good relationships going.
Mm.
And so this card is just an example of where do we get our kickboxers from? We get them from Rise and we get them from shoot boxing. And shoot boxing, for every time Kaito fights on a Rising card, they want us to put 5 other shoot boxing guys on cards and give them chances too. And same with Rise and Tension. So this is a good opportunity for them to kind of get in the good graces of these promotions, put some of their stars on there, get them a bunch of exposure, and then help develop talent for Rising then in the future. It's kind of like a symbiotic relationship between all the promotions.
And I think that similarly, if someone's sort of on loan to Rizin for a fight and they have some star power, these promotions have some sort of leash power to be like, hold on, now we want him to fight for us again now. You know, they can't just give them to Rizin for every single fight.
Charles, do you pay attention to Rise often?
I do, yes. I like Rise.
So the next Rise show, the next big Rise show,
Mhm.
it's gonna be Taiga taking on this fella named Khan Nakamura. Did you see what happened during the weigh-ins? Or
I did
the
not see it, but I'm familiar with Khan Nakamura. Isn't he's a interesting guy.
Yes.
I'll
And
say that at least.
yeah, and he had a fight in Rizin. He brutally knocked out his opponent, was shit talking him before and after. Did the same thing to Taiga at this press conference thing. And I see somebody like that, I'm like, oh, Rizin, you gotta get that guy more off on your card, because he's just an interesting fella in general. And
Well, I feel like he was kind of brought into Rise to lose, and then he did like really well.
yeah,
So it'll be interesting to see how that goes going forward. But I mean, he's an exciting fighter who gets a lot of attention for the fights. So, and that's what Rise and Rising both need. Because I mean, I would like to also say that a thought I had is the kind of like shadow over Rising is that Tenshin's going to boxing. And so all of the guys on this card are just kind of like, hey, Rising puts on kickboxing matches all the time. And Tenshin's been their star for 5 years. But now all of a sudden there's going to be a hole. And any one of us, there's like no real front winner besides Koji, but Koji's an older fighter. So any one of these guys could become the new face of kickboxing for Rizin.
mm-hmm. And that's the thing, is that I figure that Rizin is now more than ever should be. If you're gonna have to fall momentum on these guys, because once Tension leaves December and then March, listen, that's gonna be a major crater to fill. In terms of who's going to be the next Tension, and I'm not going to count Takaru in that thing, because I think Takaru's not. I think Takaru's going to
never leave
probably
K1.
Yeah, he's under the dictatorship of K1, and I don't think he's gonna be fighting for that much longer either, as well. So that division is gonna be, you're gonna have a lot of people, but then you're gonna have it's not gonna be the same when intentionally. So that's why I'm hoping Ryzen can find somebody, and Rise can find someone to capitalize on it. Do you have any thoughts on this fight, by the way, Charles? Yuyama Izumi.
Ueyama has been kind of on a rough patch recently, but he's still a pretty good fighter. So I think it should be a fun fight between the two of them.
How about you, Chris?
Again, I really don't have much to say on this fight, aside from the fact of Ueyama winning. But, again, what else is there to know about this fight? Especially considering the fact that Izumi is making his Rizin debut, and Ueyama is in his, how many Rizin appearances is this for him now?
I think it's his 3rd or 4th.
Yeah, exactly. So I can't really tell you much about analysis of the fight. All I can just say is who I think is going to win. That'll be Ueyama. Other than that, I got nothing.
It's gonna suck because Chris, after it used to be a thing where we do is somebody is tension worthy. We would always say somebody in that weight class, if they won the fight,
I
we're not
know
gonna be
what
able to
you're
do that
saying.
anymore soon.
I know what you're saying because it sucks that tension ain't gonna be around after New Year's Eve of this year, and he's definitely not gonna be around kickboxing for at least the next year, because he's obviously going into boxing after this. Who knows who's going to promote him? Probably Mayweather Promotions because of the history, but still, now we got to ask, who do you think is rising worthy, or is kickboxing in general rising worthy after this set of fights that's going to happen? These 3 non-tournament fights and the 3 tournament fights that are going to happen on this card.
Mm-hmm.
I think kickboxing will always be around in Rising because I think Dream and kickboxing kind of showed that they don't really have enough high-level MMA talent to put on a bunch of events with only MMA fights all year long. And so kickboxing allows them to put other exciting things. Plus, if you watch the Sakakibara with Dana White kind of talk they had, he's all about differentiating the Rising brand and making it unique. And having kickboxing fights is something that they can do to set themselves apart and be like, we're not the UFC, we're not Bellator. We do kickboxing one match, and then we do an MMA fight the next fight.
Okay, so I gotta I'm so sorry you brought that up, Charles, because I wanted to kind of rant on that. Did everybody see that what was it? Preparing for, was it the preparation for the fight or whatever video on Rizin thing? Chris or Jack, did you see that video with Sakakibara?
I haven't seen that one. They've done a few of those in that series, though, right?
Is this the one Dana White you're talking about?
Oh no! They've only done one with Dana White. Yes, the one with Dana White. I know you saw it, Charles.
I heard about some of that conversation.
Chris, did you see it?
Thankfully, I have not seen it, but I will make it a point to watch it.
It's great
before this fight card that happens tonight, I guess
it's great because you can see Sakakibara jump into a whatever it was, a plushy pool or whatever it is. And
it's Steve Aoki's house.
Okay, so here's the thing: I admire that Sakakibara wants to expand and try to get the product out there. He's like the complete opposite of so many other Japanese promoters who are so insular and think of like Japan is still this island that like nobody has access to. So I admire him for that. But to go after influencers and YouTube DJs that I've never have heard of, and he thinks that like these people are gonna like help.
Andrew, I don't think Steve Aoki's a YouTube DJ. The Grammy winner.
I think he's talking about the first guy in the video. I never even heard of the guy. His name's Credible.
Yeah.
I never even heard of that guy.
And I never even heard of Steve Aoki till that video, honestly.
Steve Aoki's dad.
Well, I'm offended personally.
Steve Aoki, I'm a fan of his father's restaurant. Benihana's was a childhood staple growing up.
Oh,
for birthdays and Christmas parties.
Who does not love Benihana's?
His dad owns Benihana's.
Oh, okay. So I know his dad, but I never heard a Steve Aoki song in my entire life.
He's super famous. I can't name a song, but I do know Steve Aoki's famous.
Is it one of those things where
he does a thing where he plays, he's like a festival DJ, and I don't know if he still does it, but he, like, when he was famous, he did this thing where he would like take a cake and throw it in the crowd, and it would like land on people. And that was like a thing he would do every single show. He would throw a cake in the crowd. That
sounds like Gallagher when he would take out the watermelon and smash it.
I think you just extremely aged yourself with that reference. Remember that 70s comic that would smash watermelons?
70s? Come on, that was the 70s. Come on.
A lot of us
I'm being a dick. I'm being a dick.
Gallagher, dude. Let's just say it.
Well, I mean, his sister was in Sin City. His sister's a famous fashion model. He is a famous DJ, and his dad is a Japanese man who's a famous restaurant owner. I believe he started in Hawaii. So I think there's that kind of Japanese connection that Sakakibara is looking for. And
here's the thing: Aoki did not seem like he gave a shit at all. At least that was the impression I was getting.
Well, if we're going on that angle, I got the impression that nobody in the video gave a shit.
Oh,
that, like Dana White was like, "Why are you here to talk to me?"
At least Dana White seemed to actually pay attention and have a conversation with him. I had Steve Aoki and who the what's the other guy's name? Credible?
I think it was Credible. I think he's like a young guy that got super rich and gives investment advice or something. I'm speaking out my ass. I have no idea who he is.
Same with me. And like, these people are not going to help Rizin at all.
No, and I hope like they're talking about Steve Aoki remixing the Rising intro song. And I'm like, do not throw money at Steve Aoki. You guys just had a crowdfunding campaign to save your organization.
That's what I'm saying.
Do not throw that money at Steve Aoki.
This is good. This is good. This is going to be like, I'm trying to think of like, what would be like a bad investment or like,
no, it would be like when I'll give you the perfect example because it's literally the same thing. When the UFC paid a shit ton of money to Hans Zimmer to make a new UFC intro package, and then they used it, I think, like 3 times. They never used that intro package.
The same can also be said for the UFC using Carmen Electra as a part of their ad campaign to change up their image some 20 years ago, or when K1 used Dennis Rodman to help promote their damn Dynamite USA show.
I still remember that Carmen Electra campaign, so I think money well spent.
Bullshit.
But it was just so bothersome. It was just so bothersome just watching. I don't want to say that he was begging or like.
Well, I'll give you the Japanese perspective. My wife was upset because she thought he looked like a homeless person, like he was like a beggar almost. Because like she goes to Dana White's house and Dana White's office, and Dana White's like, if you need a place to stay, you can crash here, get some food, and then like Dana White shows him his private gym, which is bigger than like a public gym. And like, this is my 24-hour private chef. And then like Sakakibara was like, here, have a Rising baseball hat. I'm just like, no, not the same level, man.
I don't know. That's the thing. I was watching the video. I'm like, is this the best thing to put out? Is this the best thing to show? Shouldn't this just been all like private conversations? And
I think it's kind of like when Putin would put pictures up of him with Trump and people in the West were like, what's this going on? But what it was actually doing is people in Russia looked at it and go, oh, look, people respect our leader. So in the Japanese media, they're like, oh, Sakakibara met with Dana White. Sakakibara is a big deal. He's getting shit done. He's meeting with the wheel and dealers. So for the Japanese perspective, I think it was all very big.
So the perspective here was that, oh, it looks like UFC is going to buy out Rizin. It looks like UFC is going to work with Rizin. It was like the complete opposite. It was like, oh, it was all focused on Dana White.
No.
And the UFC.
I think to Rizin's credit, that photo of him with Floyd Mayweather and Dana White, that caused a big stir. Like I saw, people were talking about it, and it wasn't just like the usual Rizin circles that you see. It was like the MMA circles were like, what is this?
Yeah. Well, I mean, as Jack was saying, it's all just about a reaction. So now, even if Dana White and him come to no business agreement or deal, people look at that picture, and it's kind of an equation where it's kind of like the ONE FC thing, where ONE FC constantly says they're the same level as the UFC, hoping that people eventually believe that. Well, where Dana White and Sakakibara meet, people in Japan go, oh, Rising's really on the same level as the UFC. Look, they're meeting with them to talk about stuff.
Don't really talk about the damn ONE championship so much because
I'm old. I still call them ONE FC. I can't change.
I know. Same here. But it's just every time we hear about that particular promotion, it always makes me physically cringe because of the amount of hyperbole they put on.
What? I mean, you didn't like the promotional footage where they said that Victoria Lee was like a young Mike Tyson and Serena Williams?
Yeah. That's exactly the type of hyperbole I'm talking about. And the fact that they're 150 countries and 180 different languages, and shut the fuck up. It's just so annoying.
She made her pro debut before LeBron James, Christian. I mean, truly a better athlete.
I want to read a comment. Sorry to interrupt, Chris. I just want to Dumb in the chat, DUM has a funny point. He said it would be like paying Floyd Mayweather for an exhibition in Japan.
Yeah, exactly.
So I don't know if that's a better example or more recent.
First off, it would be like paying Floyd Mayweather all of your money to come knock out your star in one round.
Exactly.
It's like, how could that go? And then to have everyone in the West mock it and say it's a fixed fight.
Oh yeah. Oh that. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Every talking head was all over that fight. They didn't even give Tension the time of day to breathe or get promoted.
And now
it was kind of sad when like Bleacher Report got a hold of the story after it happened. It was like, oh no, like this is what people are getting no attention for. But you know,
and they like tend to forget that it's like 20-pound weight difference. No one cares.
Exactly.
The other thing I just wanted to say about that video is that influencers are the most selfish people in the world. So I don't want to see Sakakibara trying to cozy up to them. They are the most selfish, indulgent, arrogant people in the world, and they will listen. It will hurt. It will hurt.
Did it not feel like kind of like a sketchy version of MTV Cribs?
Yes, it was.
Like Steve Aoki's like, let me show you my house.
Let me show you
this is my toy room.
This is my toy room where I jumped into the toy, the plushie room, into the plushies, and that was the most bizarre thing. And then like they're showing like a montage of Sakakibara like. I don't know whatever that type of dive is called, like diving into a thing, and I'm just thinking like, is this? I don't know. My mind was kind of just blank on like what to think about this.
Well, when you think about it, Sakakibara is a smart guy. If you think about it from a branding perspective, maybe he has no intention of coming into any business deals with these people.
I hope
he was already in the U.S. to meet with Mayweather and to meet with Horiguchi and to sign some contracts and do something with Logan Paul. I don't know what the hell that was. But if he was, while he was there, he could take videos with these influential people and then just show the Japanese audience and be like, look, we're with influential people too. We're a big deal. And then just take advantage of them, so to speak, and then just never do anything with it.
So we got like a 4D chess thing here going.
Exactly. You think you're taking advantage of me, but I'm taking advantage of you, thinking you're taking advantage of me.
It's it's like a Game of Thrones or like the Prestige type thing. Oh no, the real magic was what I was doing. You were doing the shit magic or whatever the thing that movie was about.
I know that Steve Aoki is internationally famous, but none of my friends in Japan know who he is.
Well, I think he's not as famous. I mean, I might be speaking completely out of turn here, but I think he's not as famous as he used to be, because I think he sort of was part of like a wave of like DJs a decade ago that sort of aren't as famous. But 2 years ago, he did a remix with BTS that did pretty good numbers. Did remix one of their top songs.
I'll just say that I don't follow a lot of music, and the fact that I know who he is, to me makes me think that he must be something.
If you wanted to really like get Rizin's brand or whatever out there, why not do it with BTS? That's like, if you
that will $1 billion to throw.
I'll tell you this: BTS fans are the most. I have to be careful with my words here, because this could come out the bite. They are the most passionate fans out there, and they will come to anything that BTS even breathes on. We got McDonald's.
You also say that much like most K-pop fandom, they're very, very, very loyal.
I mean, like to a fault, where like if you say anything bad about them on social media, they will find you, they will hunt you down, and they will kill your entire family.
See, I tend to think all that stuff was just what Sakakibara was doing while he was in America, because Rising 28, I mean, they had Mei J, a Japanese pop star, sing the national anthem. They had like a YouTuber famous for her Pikachu stuff come on and do the announcing for the Kai fight. So I think most of the collaborations are going to be Japanese oriented.
Yeah, I don't think that person was a YouTuber. She's more like a Seiyu, a Japanese voice actress.
Well, I think she's also quite popular on YouTube.
I guess in the end,
her last video got like 745,000 views as at the time I was watching it, and that was basically for her, recap of going into Rise.
Right. Mm-hmm.
I guess the main thing I can say is, I do admire that Sakakibara is at least not like other promoters who's just staying in source. So there's at least that positive. He's at least going out there.
My theory is the coronavirus scared him shitless, especially when a bunch of the shows got canceled and they had to do the crowdfunding campaign.
Mm-hmm.
And especially when Pride died because they lost the Fuji TV money, I think he's trying to find other revenue sources.
Yeah. The most fascinating thing also was that when and I didn't know this, he said that Pride had an office in Las Vegas.
That all was hilarious to me. The fact that it took them 2 years to put that show on.
it. Sorry, CJ. Please continue.
No, you watch the video. He said it took him like 2 or 3 years to get everything in order to do the Las Vegas show. And I was just like, how is that even possible that it took that long?
They had to go through every single loophole that the Nevada State Athletic Commission gave them. Plus, when it came down to that office, they didn't know where they were going to. I mean, they probably didn't even know where exactly was Las Vegas or where exactly they would even go to in the United States just to do their office. I mean, weren't they thinking about like doing one in New York or something?
They may have said something, but I can't believe it was serious. Well, they may have thought they were serious. I guess 2 years is not that surprising. I'll tell you, listen, sports commissions can be pretty anal, especially Nevada at the time. I think UFC had just become like, or was like in the process, was already established as a sport by then. MMA was.
Well, that's more of my theory. Is I imagine the Fertitta brothers were trying to not let Pride come to Las Vegas and probably made it a slower application process.
I wouldn't be surprised, but also I guess so. But was UFC what it was then? What it was now? Did they still have that type of power? You think?
And I mean, the Fertitta brothers are insanely powerful. I mean, they had their own casino.
Oh, okay. Oh, yeah, I forgot about that. Yeah, that's okay. Yeah, that's a good point. No, because I'm just thinking because at the time UFC was much smaller than than Pride by significantly. So, yeah, I forgot that Fertillas also had their casinos. That's of course where they got their fucking money. No, it doesn't surprise me. 2 years to put on a show to try to, I don't know, especially at the time. I don't know if that like, I think you kind of that might be it. There is that Fertitta brothers kind of were like yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if they had something to do with that. It's funny also though in that video Dana White was kind of like acting all chummy or like appeared to be acting all chummy, but you know, I can never really truly know what Dana's thinking, but I felt like it's interesting that he actually that he did it on video and had that conversation.
I agree. That's what I thought too as well, because I mean, by all accounts, Dana White is very bitter about the Pride acquisition because once they bought Pride, they discovered that most of the fighters were fighting on expired contracts. I think he's on record as saying all the deal bought him was the world's most expensive video library, because then all of the Pride people left and started Dream.
You know, not that I don't think this is any breaking news, but Dana White's an asshole, and like, for him to give the day and time to like Sakakibara, like here's the thing: if Scott Coker were doing something for Bellator, you know, I don't know, going touring around, Dana White wouldn't be anywhere near it.
Well, we all know why he did it. Mayweather told him to.
You think Dana White's Mayweather's bitch? You think Mayweather has that type of?
No, but I think the entire reason they met, because that's not the first time they met. They met at the restaurant where Floyd Mayweather invited Dana White without telling Dana White that Sakakibara was there.
Okay.
And we all know that Dana White's like goal is to have his own boxing. And Mayweather that. Behind that would definitely help him with that cause.
Dumb in the chat says, as I recall, a lot of the people in Pride were partnering with at the time were also hanging around trying to buy them after the fall. Were also the Las Vegas casino people. Who's that guy? Fishman? Is that name sound familiar? Fishman to anybody?
Station Casinos.
Oh, okay. I don't know anything about the casino business. I don't gamble.
Probably a good thing that you don't know the owners of casinos.
Yeah. That's enough to talk about that video. It's an interesting video. It's on Rizin's YouTube channel. 40 minutes.
Go ahead and get to the next bout, please. I think so we got a graphic in the background. Nadaka Iwa Sports, aka Yoshinari Nadaka versus Chikai Imura.
Mm-hmm. He goes by the singer named Chikai. Apparently, he does not go by his last name. He does the Masato thing, where you shall only remember me by my first name. I think it's fair to say we all know who's gonna win this fight. And I guess with that question being said is, Jack, how do you think Nadaka is gonna win this?
Well, I mean, he has a lot to live up to because his 2 previous fights in Rizin have been quite impressive. So I guess the expectation is for him to get a stoppage. I mean, I don't honestly know a lot about his opponent. He's like Nadaka, he's very young and doesn't, I mean, he has less experience than him. But I mean, we'll see how it goes. But this is probably shaping up to be another strong showcase for Nadaka.
Yeah, I don't know if you can see the graphic. He is 8-7 in kickboxing. 8-5, excuse me, 8-5. So yeah, this is it's an interesting division because kind of like Tension's division, it's kind of ruled by one man or one boy in this case. To Charles, what do you think about this fight, and how do you think Nadaka puts away Chikai?
My general thought is that Nadaka is kind of like low key, someone that Rising has been grooming to in the background replace Tenshin. He's young. He wins very exciting fights. He's shown that he can fight internationally. And I'm going to say he wins by 3 knockdowns.
Chris, how about you?
Again, I got nothing. All I can think is that Yoshinori Nadaka, aka Nadaka Iwa Sports, is gonna win this fight. I mean, even though, yeah, I can basically see the title belt that Chikai is holding on his shoulder, means he's a pretty interesting fighter. He is obviously, I mean, would you say that he fought in Thailand before?
I don't know if he's fought in Thailand. He fights for the New Japan Kickboxing Federation.
That means he has not fought in Thailand like Nadaka has, obviously.
Oh, no. Nadaka basically makes his bread and butter in Thailand.
Exactly. And I think that's probably why Nadaka is going to win this fight, because as you said, Andrew, they're grooming him to be the next Tenshin Nasukawa when Tenshin Nasukawa leaves Rizin and kickboxing to go into boxing, Western boxing. So, you know, what better way to build somebody's resume for the future than to have a champion on their resume? That's probably what Nadaka is going to get in Chikai Imura.
Do you think, though, that division that Nadaka is in, what straw weight, he's even fought less, that it is a desert, even for Japan, typically smaller fighters.
Yeah,
so
you can't get pack mule fighters everywhere, Andrew, and that's basically what the men's strawweight division is, that rare unicorn of fighters. But I don't know. I mean, he's gonna have to bulk up, eat some more. I'm not trying to say Happy Meals, but eat some more steak or something in order to get up to the level of tension.
He'll have to eat more BTS meals in Japan.
I think he'll be fine. I mean, Asia's filled with tiny fighters, so they'll be able to bring people over for him to fight.
But like that tiny?
There's more 115ers than there are 265ers.
True. Especially for the women.
But especially with the Japan being basically not welcoming foreigners for at least as much as they used to now because of the pandemic, it's gonna be a lot harder to find just like talent everywhere.
Well, I think the Corona days are hopefully going to be behind us soon. The vaccinations are probably going to start with my age group, which is 30s in July. So I would hope that by September show they can start bringing in foreign fighters. And I mean, that's the one thing that gets the Japanese fan base really going, is when you have like the Japanese versus non-Japanese matches, like the old Pride days. And so if you bring over like Thai champions and have him fight them, I think people go nuts for it.
So I just want to correct myself. His records, Chikai's record is 8-7, not 8-5, as I originally said. I mean, here's the thing. What do you think of the? So if Tenshin's last kickboxing match in Rizin is in December, let's assume it's not Takaru, because it probably isn't, unfortunately.
Yeah,
what is the
0%.
likelihood that it is Tenshin versus Nadaka, because this is a fight that Nadaka's wanted, and it'll be kind of like a passing of the torch type match. I'll put that to you, Jack, first.
I don't think that's happening. I don't think that's happening. Just period. I don't think that's happening.
Charles?
Tenshin versus Taiga seems more possible to me. This fight, yeah, I agree with Jack. I don't see that fight even being on the radar as a possible option. I mean, it's a terrible. What happens? Nadaka loses and you destroy the guy that you're trying to build up after Tenshin, or Tenshin loses and looks terrible in boxing. It's just they're not going to give him some tough opponent. I don't think they're going to give him some fun guy that everyone likes, who's probably a little bit over the hill, and then Tenshin rides off into the sunset.
Yeah. Christian, what do you think?
I mean, it's like I said, we all know that, Nadaka's being built as the next Tenshin. But in order for Nadaka to potentially face off against Tenshin, he gonna need to, as we say in the hood, swole up. He gonna need to, gain a few lbs or like 1 or 2 kilos just to fight the dude. But I don't think that we gonna see Nadaka versus Tenshin. I mean, unless it's in an exhibition, which that could possibly happen. But, I don't think we're going to see an actual fight between those two.
If he starts dating Kana Asakura, though, and we get the former versus ex-boyfriend match, I'll be all about it.
Don't get us started. That's like some Jerry Springer type of storyline stuff there.
That'd be funny. That'd be so funny.
But still, I don't think that we're going to see, Tenshin versus Nadaka anytime soon, unless it's in an exhibition. I do think that we're going to see possibly Tenshin versus Taiga before it's all said and done.
Yeah.
And now we head into the One Night Rizin kickboxing tournament, as seen by the graphic in Andrew's background. In the first fight of this one night tournament, we got Koji Tanaka, the former ISKA champion and Heat champion, taking on King Genji Umeno. King Genji Umeno. Right. Sorry, slipped on my own botch there.
And just in case if anybody wants to see the next block as well, we have the Prince of Teppen, I'll call him, and possibly the next successor to Tenshin. I have no idea if that's going to happen after this, but we'll see. Taiju Shiratori taking on brother number 2 Takahashi, Ryo Takahashi. And yes, I think we can all agree Taiju is a very handsome man as well.
Oh Lord, stop.
Charles, curious to know, how popular is Taiju with the female fans?
Well, I mean, I don't know about him in particular, but Rise has a pretty young fan base. I think Rise has a younger fan base than Rizin. And I think Taiju is very popular. He kind of dresses kind of like Tenshin Light, if that makes any sense.
Did you see the press conference where Koji handed him the suitcase and he basically said, "Listen, you're good enough to carry my bags," or whatever it is?
Well, what that actually was a reference to is that in like a lot of these like fight camps and cultures, kind of the underlings have to carry the higher ups' bags. He was saying that you just carry Tenshin's bag all the time. Here, carry my bag too.
Oh, I love Koji so much. I love his shit talking so much.
Oh yeah.
Too bad he ain't winning anything worth a damn. So
he's the one who asked for this tournament. He's gone 0-2 in Rizin. I think so. Here's the other thing as well. So the main event is going to be whoever the 2 people win these respective matches, and I'm gonna say having a non-advertised main event where you don't know who it's gonna be, that's ballsy. That's really ballsy. Jack, what do you think about that? That the main event's gonna be determined based on this kickboxing match.
I mean, I think the writing is sort of on the wall as to what everybody wants the main event to be, what they're trying to set it up as. But can that actually happen? Probably, maybe, we'll see. I mean, that's sort of one thing that's drawing me into this, is that who is going to prevail through these 2 matchups, and how will those 2 matchups affect the main event later in that night. There's so many factors in a one-night tournament which can play into things. Someone could win the tournament based off of something that completely they didn't even do earlier in the night. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I mean, I like these matchups, and I think it's a pretty neat idea. I mean, we have a tournament that's going to be stretching throughout this year. It's sort of a nice change of pace to get a one night thing right now.
Dumb in the chat says it's a real shame that Umeno isn't fighting under Muay Thai rules too. Ah, well, yeah. Well, listen, Rising kickboxing rules are they're here to stay, unfortunately. Until I don't know when if they'll ever do Muay Thai rules. Charles, what do you think about this? I think it's fair to say we know what Ryzen wants this main event to be, and I mean, yeah. What do you think about that? That they're basically hedging their bets. That yeah, we hope this main event's Koji versus Taiju.
That's what they want. I mean, I think that's what everybody wants. But Koji is a little bit older. I don't really discredit his past losses though, because I mean, losing to Tenshin, that's fine, and losing to a much bigger Gomi in a boxing match is fine. He's not a boxer, so I mean, that fight's kind of a wash for me. I think he's going to come out with something to prove. It's his hometown. He's lost 2 in a row, and the tournament's for him. So I think all the pressure's on him, but I think he'll perform well. And I think Rising obviously wants him to win. I imagine they paid a lot of money to steal him from K1.
Oh yeah,
because I imagine there was some contract breach fees or something they had to pay.
I know the story behind that, by the way. You could probably ask Shu as well, but basically what comes down to is that he had to buy out his contract basically. And apparently
exactly.
It was like 6 figures apparently. That's how crazy K1 is that if you want to leave, you have to literally buy out your own contract.
Well, I mean, K1's stupid for not keeping him because he sells a ton of tickets.
Yeah.
And he's
I watched the when Koji had the fight with Takaru, like that was in Osaka as well. And the amount of Osaka fans, groupies, whatever for Koji, I was just like, it was an amazing spectacle to see. I mean, so what are Chris, what do you think about this? You know, as pro wrestling fans, I've always been told you have to advertise the main events. Always the main event is the thing that you at least have to advertise before everything else. And this one, you're not getting an advertised main event, just a slight promise of this might be one of these or 2 of these 4 guys are going to be the main event. What do you think about doing something like that?
Well, it's like CJ said, it's a bit ballsy, it's a bit risky, but hey, I like it because it basically gives you like what Larry Merchant said about boxing, that theater of the unexpected feel. And sometimes when you expect something, you get something that you're least expected with. And in the case of this fight, or these 2 fights, you know, you got to throw something on last other than having, you know, one of the fighters in the Bantamweight Grand Prix struck their stuff for 10 minutes. But still, you know, it's going to be fun seeing these 2 tournament fights, especially the Koji versus Umeno fight, because that could decipher, you know, the excitement level of the tournament final that's going to be in the main event, which I think is going to feature Taiju Shiratori because he's going to beat he's going to beat Ryo Takahashi. But still, I think that this tournament is exciting because it's like this. And I think, Jack, you pointed it out really well. Rizin obviously has the Bantamweight Grand Prix going all throughout the year with the finals on New Year's Eve. Why not have a one-night tournament just to shake things up a bit and just to excite the people instead of just have them go through this long, boring drag that people will probably expect and get tired of real quick?
Here's the imagine if the main event, and remember, Charles, we were fantasy booking like the worst Bantamweight Grand Prix final, and Sakakibara would just sell Rizin to UFC right after. So if the main event is Genji Umeno versus Ryo Takahashi, does the entire Osaka crowd just leave before the main event? Do they just leave right after Kintaro fights?
Well, I mean,
you know what, CJ, before you say that, I think it's going to be like how it was at the Nassau Coliseum the other night. They're just going to throw beers at the ring.
I will say the one thing I think it's different than the wrestling is this is like a one-day event. They're not advertising it on TV. You watch it live, and it's not on Fuji TV or anything. So I think they can afford to gamble with the main event and just let what happens happen and let the chips fall where they fall.
Mm-hmm.
And
You know,
you said that
sorry, Jack, go ahead.
you said that they're not promoting the main event, but I mean, yeah, they sort of are. I mean, there's they're getting people through the door by saying you're gonna see Taiju fight, you're gonna see Koji fight, and the main events you're likely gonna see them fight again. So, I mean, I think that the main event, the tournament makes sense on this card because without the tournament, there's no real main event that you can pick out.
You could have Kintaro. Kintaro is a big enough name and has a
He's
large
huge.
enough following that he basically he lost his last Rizin fight and was able to get in. I think solely based on his social media following.
See, this whole card to me was just like they're making all their money from the ticket sales.
Mhm.
I think the pay-per-view is just gravy to them, and it's all just Osaka, come watch Koji win a tournament.
There's a question for you, CJ, in the chat from Dumb. He asks, or he or she asks, is this being televised in Kansai, or do other deals preclude that? So I forgot. There was that. Remember that whole thing with Koji?
Yeah.
With the last
He was
show.
upset. He
Yeah.
got upset because they delayed it, and it pissed him off because it affected his sponsors and his fans. I don't know this thing. I don't think this is being televised on Fiji TV. If you give me a second, I can look into it.
But I remember I would have to guess that this has got to be at least, if not his, at least his fight would have to be aired in the Kansai region live. I'm assuming because especially after the snafu that happened the last time. Listen, and like you said, this show is sold out basically on his back. So if this is not being aired in Kansai, that would be stupid, surprising, and baffling all at the same time. In the meet, so while you try to find that out, Charles, Jack, are you predicting Koji Taiju for the to go forward in this tournament?
Yeah, I mean, like anything, something could happen, you know. So I'm not going to discount the fact that somebody could pull something off, but just that's probably the educated guess to make. It's funny you mentioned Shiratori, how you mentioned his handsomeness. I feel like similar to anyone who's watched Dana White's web series Looking for a Fight. Remember when he came across Sage Northcutt, his approach was like, "Why are you fighting? You know, like why aren't you like being a model or something, doing something better with your looks?" It's a similar thing for Shiratori, in my opinion.
Here's the thing about Shiratori, though, if you've ever seen him fight. He once you get past his reach and his jab, once you get inside of him, he is very easy to dominate. And if you remember the first Taiga fight, that's what happened. Taiga almost won that fight. I don't think Shiratori has won his last few fights. I think he was recently in the Rise in a Rise tournament, and I think they were hedging their bets on Rise versus Kento Haraguchi, but then Taiju got a nasty knee to the head.
I was at that show. He got a nasty cut that stopped the fight.
Yeah, and nobody like the whole idea was that they were trying to. I that's what I was perceiving, was that they wanted to do Taiju versus Kento in that main event.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the thing, is that Taiju is great until he's not, if that makes sense. And it's entirely possible that it could be Koji versus Takahashi, which I think would be a much more interesting main event. I'm just, here's the thing. I'm actually, so with Umeno, I hope it doesn't come down to Umeno and Taiju, because they had a really boring fight as well. About a year or two ago in Rise. I think that's worst case scenario. That's a fight I don't want to see. Do you remember that fight, Charles?
I'm sorry, is it Umeno versus who?
Taiju.
Yeah. That's the problem you get when you put a bunch of Rise kickboxers on a show. As it turns out, they've all pretty much fought each other before in Rise.
Yeah. It's kind of like the Bantamweight. It's like the Bantamweight tournament itself, where like Otsuka and Ishiwatari have fought already twice. And other people have like fought 10 years ago in VTJ.
Oh yeah, this Bantam. I mean, the whole Rising tournament's hilarious because Otsuka's fought like everybody almost. But yeah. So I think Koji versus Taiju was what everyone wants to see, but as the Taiju fight with the cut showed, where everyone wanted to see Taiju in the main event of that fight. Tournaments are hard to predict, and anything can happen.
Mm-hmm.
Were you able to find out anything about that Kansai TV deal?
Oh, I sent it. I'm waiting to hear back from
Oh,
somebody.
okay, gotcha. Yeah. Here's the thing. I will. It would be funny because here as well, seeing really short Koji taking on really tall Taiju. I think the visual is very funny as well. Because I think Cody's about like 5'5". I think it says here like five. He's not. It says 5'8". I don't think he's 5'8". I think he's shorter than 5'8". He's got to be like 5'7" or 5'6". And Taiju is legit like 6 feet tall. Uh,
He's a big guy.
yeah, it's and I think this is supposed to be this is bantamweight. So do you think also that they want Koji to get a win? Because I have no doubt that they're probably paying Koji lots of money. Then they want to kind of like just do something with their investment. Do you think that's also why they had this tournament, Charles?
Well, I mean, I think they kind of need him to win. 3 losses in a row looks significantly worse than 2 losses. And but it's Japan. I feel like the Japan audience doesn't react to losses the same way as kind of foreign audiences do. Whereas if they're good fights, they won't care as much. But I think the crowd will be very disappointed if he doesn't win because they're all there to see him.
The collective breath. If he gets knocked out, if Koji gets knocked out of that Osaka crowd, it'll be like I'm trying to think of where. I'm trying to think what would be an incredible. Here's a good example: when Rumble knocked out Gustafsson in Sweden. If you remember that fight, and like the Sweden crowd like just did not know how to react. I think they thought they were in a simulation that they had just not witnessed Gustafsson.
Well, they also stayed up super late, didn't they? It was like a very strange time.
Oh yes, I forgot about that.
It's like wherever UFC goes, they keep the American prime time zone, so it just completely screws over the live crowds.
Okay, I totally forgot about that.
Plus, I mean, as soon as you see that your local town hero is fighting Rumble Johnson, I just wouldn't go. Like, oh, know how this is going.
So what do you hope is a main event, Charles?
Koji versus Taiju. I just got a message back from my Babalu Jack who said he looked it up and not even on tape delay or on Fuji TV. So maybe Rising is just looking to make some money from the pay-per-views.
Wow. So this isn't even being like aired live in Kansai. Like,
yeah, get those $50 pay-per-views.
Wow. That's so I'm baffled. Hopefully Koji doesn't know this. I hope Koji, because if he finds out, he's gonna be pissed.
I mean, the last Rising 28 did okay with their Fuji TV numbers, and it was completely stacked with star power. So I think for Rising to get Fuji TV's attention to put a show on Fuji TV, they have to like really stack a card, and I don't think Koji alone is enough for that. I think you have to have like a Mikuru Asakura, a Tenshin, a Kai, Rena, someone like that who's big on an entire countrywide TV audience, just not Kansai. I was kind of surprised she was on the card too, because she's from Osaka as well.
Who is this?
Rena.
Oh, Reina. Yeah, I have no idea what's going on, Reina. Maybe she actually is legitimately breeding Frenchies as her job. Maybe she realized it's a lot better than getting kicked in the face.
Well, it's very clear she had a fight lined up for the last Rising card, and something happened to it because she went on like a very pissed off rant on Instagram stories about like what's happening. Like, I've been training, and then she said like, screw it, I'm going out and eating and drinking. Diet's over.
Actually, a very not similar rant, but kind of had the same emotional thing was Kyra Batara, who was supposed to have a prelim fight on Bellator actually yesterday, and her fight got canceled.
From COVID restriction, COVID violations.
Yeah, that sucks. But hey, at least she got additional income to work with.
I have no idea what you're speaking about.
Let's just say it's a certain site with the initials OF.
I think it was two people in her corner tested positive for COVID. It wasn't that she had it.
Yeah, I think it's just like
Yeah, but at least but she's not griping and moaning about it.
No, but she was upset. She was upset about it. She did.
Rightfully so. It seemed like she was talking about how much she put into the fight. It was sort of disappointing it would be disappointing for anyone, really.
When the pandemic's over, I'd like to see Rizin bring her and Alyssa Garcia all back.
Oh, that'd be great.
Fight Rizin. They both had very good fights.
Exactly. Especially considering the fact that Garcia, just came back into the fold after, taking time off, having kids, and getting her college degree. And obviously Batara with her additional revenue.
I hope we see like the atomweight division just get skyrocketed with talent. I hope we see Garcia back. I hope we see Batara back. I hope we see I wouldn't mind seeing all four of those women. I'm sure that they all did well enough at the Deep Jewels tournament. Siwu Park, Hikaru Ono.
What was that girl's name from Brazil who trains with Jessica Andrade and them?
I think that's Maria Neto Oliveira.
Yeah, she's been hanging around the UFC recently. She was really good in the tournament. I'd like to see her back in Rising as well.
I hope so too. I don't know if Reina will go to atomweight because she's been kind of doing like catch weight.
She fights at Renaweight, 49 kilo.
For Renaweight.
Yes,
107 pounds.
Chris, what do you predict to be the main event of this show?
I mean, it's like I said, Taiju's going to be fighting in the main event, hopefully, after he beats Ryo Takahashi. It's just that this fight is anyone's guess. Because obviously we all want to see Koji versus Taiju. That's obvious because Koji wants to basically say, Koji wants to heal everything up and say, these people came to see me. I'm the main attraction, blah, 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 blah.
And he's right.
Exactly. But, I mean, what's the harm of Genju Ueno versus Taiju Shiratori 2? I mean, do y'all really think that's going to be a boring fight?
Because the last fight did not last long at all. It was about 30 seconds. Taiju put him out.
I will say.
Because Dumb basically said it in the comments. They had a really short fight. Who's to say that fight won't be exciting again?
Sorry, Charles, you were going to say?
I agree with Andrew on this one. The one point you made about Taiju does well until he's not is the most. I mean, in the second Taiga fight, it's like he's coasting, and all of a sudden he's in like extreme trouble. So, if I'm a Taiju fan, I'm nervous watching him fight at any time because he's making it look easy, and then he's fighting for his life. Seems to be the trend.
You know who he reminds me of, and Jack. I know you cover basically all of MMA. I want to see if you agree with this. You know who he reminds me of? Actually, Charles, you probably also will get this reference, and so you, Christian. He reminds me of Stefan Struve, where he's almost his
waiting to see where you go with this.
Well, what he makes him strong as a fighter, his length, his reach, his height is also his downfall, because once you break that, it's like it's easy pickings. And Stefan Struve has lost to fighters who he should never have lost to in his career. And same thing with Taiju. He lost to fighters who I would assume he's way above levels of. And I think his physical advantages are both his disadvantages.
But listen, no offense here, but let's not downplay Taiju too much. He's a very skilled fighter. He's
very good.
I think we're talking. I mean, it's obviously important to focus on losses, but I think we shouldn't get too caught up in the fact that he's out of everybody in this tournament, in my opinion, at least, probably the favorite to win. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know how I feel about the Stefan Struve analysis, because Taiju is much higher level than Stefan Struve.
Well, no, one time Stefan Struve was top of the level heavyweight. Remember, he defeated Stipe Miocic once, albeit he did eye poke him though. He did do a shitty eye poke.
He won on a technicality, is what you're saying.
Oh yeah,
I mean, Taiju is obviously the favorite. I mean, I wasn't trying to say he wasn't the favorite. I was just trying to say that if I'm a Taiju fan, I'd always be worried because, I mean, the Taiga fight awesome fight. He always puts on a fun fight, but he can be coasting and then just all of a sudden everything's in trouble.
That's the thing.
That's combat sports in general, not just him.
He doesn't really also have the power that like Tension has. He doesn't have he like, if you do a comparison between Taiju and Tension, I think we all agree tension is the much better of the two. But like in terms of like it's his ability to just keep opponents away from himself. That's what he's so good at. And he does get the knockout sometimes, but not a lot. But the problem is that he also has his chin is not that good. That Tiger fight, one shot put him down twice.
One shot, one kill.
I'll be honest. I hope that Ryo Takahashi and Genji Umeno is the main event, just because it's cool to see when plans don't go according to plan. And I love when I see underdogs win. And this year is the year of the underdog, starting with Brandon Moreno, one of the best stories ever to come out of in combat sports, in my personal opinion. And
especially considering the fact that he went from released to champion in less than a year.
Exactly. And I love to see the unexpected in the sport, because you never know what it's gonna bring. Koji and Taiju, here's the thing. Rizin can do it anytime in the future if they want to. They could do it for New Year's Eve if they want to. But if Genji Umeno and Ryo Takahashi somehow made it to the main event, this would be their only time ever in a Rizin main events. So that's what I hope is the main event. I'm probably so wrong in this.
I'd also never see kickboxing and Rising again.
Oh, Lord.
He'll just say tension. Go have your thing and rise. We're done. We're full MMA now. We're full MMA and tag team grappling now. Oh, that'd be so funny.
But other than that, as far as my prediction goes, I wouldn't mind seeing Taiju versus Koji in the finals.
Here's the other thing as well. I'm actually, again, the problem with one day tournament as well. So let's just say, Koji did win, but then I don't know, he has like a broken foot or a broken leg and he can't do the next match. So then I'm assuming that they don't have any alternates. I think they're just hedging their bets that nobody gets seriously injured, as far as I know.
Yeah, I think those types of injuries are way less common in kickboxing tournaments as opposed to MMA tournaments. I mean, they have the bigger gloves. There are less ways to damage them. It's not like the Dream tournament where Eddie Alvarez's eye is like swollen completely shut. I don't think in Rise, are they allowing elbows? They don't allow elbows in these fights.
Not in the kickboxing matches. I think for Nadaka's matches, they're allowing elbows, but not for this one.
So I think there's hoping that no cuts happen.
Well, now they have Vaseline, so there should be less cuts as well.
Oh, Lord.
There should be, but as we saw at the Yutaka Saito fights, that doesn't help. It helps only to a certain degree, but even an inadvertent. Just imagine if like there's an inadvertent headbutt during Koji and Genji Umeno, and they both can't compete. So then Taiju and Ryo Takahashi just somehow becomes the de facto main event.
I'm just hoping that no one falls out of the ring.
Exactly.
Well, no. That'd be funny. Well, in a kickboxing match, it should be less likely falling out of the ring, because they're not throwing their opponents out. Well,
I like how Charles says he hopes no one falls out of the ring, and Andrew's like, but it would be funny.
It would be. It would.
What?
I hope they don't get injured. I hope they.
It would probably be like that Riddick Bowe Elijah Tillery fight from like 30 years ago.
Oh yes.
Not every day you hear a Riddick Bowe reference.
Yes. But you know what, Andrew? You're also talking about there's no tournament alternates. We do have a 139-pound fight in the opening bout, Yuma Yamahata versus Kyoto Takahashi.
That's true. I totally, yeah. So I don't know if it's they weighed in differently though. I wonder though, like if they just had those, those can be just in case they just have those similar weight matches just in case someone gets a little bit injured.
Exactly.
That's interesting. I didn't think about that. That's a good point, Christian.
But yeah, they could use whoever gets injured going into the final bout of the evening, they can have the winner of the Yamahata versus Takahashi fight, or even the loser, if the loser doesn't sustain much damage, they can have one or the other fight in that tournament final.
Or you know what they could also do, and this is going to be a great transition in case if they do need somebody to put on gloves to take on Koji or Taiju or whoever's going to be the main event, they could always give it to this person who did fight in a kickboxing match once. Yusaku
Yusaku
Nakamura.
Nakamura. And you know what? Yusaku Nakamura felt out. I'm still going to say this because obviously it was true. When he fought Rin Hiramoto on Rizin, at the Bellator 237 post-limbs, powered by Rizin.
Sorry, Christian. That was Ashita. That was Ashita who fought him.
Oh, right. But still, Yusaku Nakamura, wasn't he the guy that fought Tenshin, who fell out of his element?
I think that's a nice way to put it. Out of his element.
Exactly. That would be pretty cool for Nakamura to get his revenge. Him fighting, in the tournament finals of this one-night kickboxing tournament, but instead he's facing off against Daichi Takata.
I have very negative feelings about Nakamura that I won't say because I feel like I'm in the minority. Jack, thoughts about this fight, and are you as negative about Nakamura as I am? But probably not.
Listen, I think that there's a lot of negativity around Nakamura, but people have to remember that he had a certain stint in Rizin where the way he was being booked was as if he owed someone money. I mean, he fought Tenshin Nasukawa and then he fought Mano Cape. I mean, who would you give him next to make him a more Killer's Row type of booking style in Rizin at that time? This is a good matchup in my opinion. I mean, I don't think that this is a matchup where we can really trash Nakamura for, he's going to come in and he's going to get completely dominated by the other guy. On paper, at least, I like this matchup. To who I would take in it, I honestly don't know, but I'm happy he's personally, maybe I'm more of an optimist. I'm happy Nakamura is back in Rizin because he's been given really tough fights in Rizin, and it's nice for him to get one where it seems like a closer matchup.
Charles, I know also you probably had followed Nakamura a long time as well when he was in I believe he fought in Deep as well. So what do you think about this matchup?
Well, I think it'd probably be more on Andrew's side with the Nakamura being more on like a downward trend. I know his opponent's been very good, but the results have just been kind of disappointing, to be honest. But I do think this is a much more his level of opponent, and so it's a much more winnable fight for him. And I always thought it was kind of weird that the way that they're matchmaking him, because he clearly has the looks and potential to be kind of a popular fighter, and they just kept squishing him. I don't know why they didn't give him time to develop or grow within the promotion.
And actually, Christian, I think you're thinking of the Shinryu fight that he had against with Nakamura at that the post
right.
And also if you remember the fight Nakamura had with Topnoi, a fight that I thought he lost significantly. He got his front teeth knocked out in that match. Does everybody remember that fight?
Yes.
And then he tried to get a timeout to tell the referee that his teeth have been knocked out or something. Do you, Charles or Jack, do you remember that by any chance?
It sounds vaguely familiar. I don't remember. It was a Rising fight with Topnoi, right?
Yes. Yeah.
I have the image printed in my mind of his post-fight interview with his two front teeth completely gone. As of how the fight went, I have honestly not that good of a memory.
It was a pretty shitty fight.
Was this the Topnoi fight where they were billing it as, this is going to be crazy, and then nothing really happened?
That's exactly how it was, and it was basically just it was kind of like that's why I can remember the only thing from it is his Nakamura's two front teeth getting knocked out, because nothing else in that fight mattered. Does Nakamura also is he the one with the wife who has with a very famous wife as well?
Are you thinking of Saiza or Saiwa? Saiga.
Oh, okay. Never mind. Because I still try to think of what is it about him that gets him booked. So here's the thing. I understand why Yachi's booked. Yachi could lose 10 fights in a row. Yogibu loves him. That's why he's booked.
He's popular on YouTube.
Oh, Yachi, you mean?
Yachi has a very popular YouTube page.
Oh, that too, and also the sponsor loves him, so he's
Oh, yeah.
got that. I'm baffled as to why Nakamura is still booked. Is this just I don't know what they see in him, or do they just see him as like a jobber to the stars?
Despite his recent losses, at one point in time, he was kind of a top prospect who was fighting at somewhat international level promotions. I mean, World Series of Fighting, whatever. Not even like, it wasn't World Series of Fighting. It was like that other offshoot of World Series of Fighting.
Well, Series of
fought in
Fighting
Japan briefly. Yeah, which was a weird thing, but he has like this kind of image, and he was doing very well. I mean, he had quite the win streak going for a while before this recent string of losses, and you either use him to build someone else up, or you give him a chance to redeem himself.
I mean, so Chris, what do you think about this fight? I mean, we've seen Nakamura throughout his entire Rizin career be basically unsuccessful minus that one top Noi fight, and I'll say the one thing positive is that I've always said I like when they pit losers against losers and winners against winners, and they're doing with this fight because Daichi lost his last fight, so I'm at least kind of happy they did that. But I mean, what do you hope this fight accomplishes, or what do you think this fight can accomplish?
I think this fight will probably. I mean, I'm not trying to say I don't think this fight can be something special, because it will be something special, probably. I just hope that this fight is something that people will be talking about, because, I mean, what's Nakamura's knockout ratio compared to Kitakata, if he has any knockouts?
He's got a lot of knockouts, at least at the beginning of his career, but it's slowly gone down as he's progressed.
Don't forget, Nakamura's from Osaka.
Oh, he is? I didn't know that.
Yeah. And
hometown fight.
Oh my God.
Home prefecture bias. But still, point of the matter is, now that y'all mentioned that, I do think that this fight will probably be one hell of a firefight.
I take back why they book him, because okay, you just answered that. That totally makes sense as well. Okay. I don't know if this. Here's the like. Here's the thing. It's like it's not that I don't want to see Nakamura not do well, but it's almost kind of like a joke at this point. It's like it's more like seeing how he's gonna lose rather than how he's gonna win. Or if
you have some grudge against Nakamura in your past life.
Like
I was bothered by the top Noi thing. Really bothered me when he tried to stop the fight to tell the referee that his teeth had been knocked out, because that's like
Andrew. This is like that time where you had a grudge against a fighter because they were tall. Like I don't understand what's going on. I want that
grudge. Hidenori Ibata. It was fucking fun. But get knocked around.
Why do you just like give yourself these small reasons to just like hate someone for the rest of their life?
I respect Andrew for this. The no reason spitefulness is endearing.
Also he smiles too much. He always smiles. Even when he loses, he smiles.
My issue with him is more of the fact that he was part of that like failed attempt to make a Team Alpha Male Japan.
I know, I heard.
And all of them they all started out like really good. And I felt like they were all terrible influences on each other. And they all just like deteriorated at rapid rates. I mean, is Yashibo going to be in his corner? Is Yashibo his trainer for this fight? What's going on?
It's just like I don't hate this guy, but I'm just curious to know what was his decline, or what was causing his decline. Did he just was it Team Alpha Male? Was that evolved, or is everybody just getting better than him? Because like you said, this guy was a prospect at one point, had a long ass undefeated streak and was knocking out people left and right, and then suddenly he comes to Rise and suddenly he just starts losing. It's I don't know. It's just I don't know. I would rather see a true prospect in his place from Osaka.
The obvious, assumption is that he was never actually that high level. He's got some good wins, but he's never really beaten anyone that big. But he's always been an exciting fighter, and people tend to enjoy watching him fight. And he's from Osaka, so they're going to put him on the card.
Oh, I'll say this: other than the top of the fight, he never had a boring fight, and win or lose, it's the way he wins or the way that I guess throughout his career in Rizin that he loses is kind of like exciting because it's kind of usually like a really brutal fashion.
Yeah, plus I was always maintaining that if his teammate Yashibo had actually won his Shuto fight, that Rising would have snapped Yashibo up right away. But he lost, and that didn't happen.
In a way, Teruto Yashabo Ishihara would have been I still think he can be a perfect fit for this promotion.
You gotta take the joint and women out of it, the joint out of his hand and the women out of his room, and get him to actually go to the gym and train.
Yeah.
But here's the thing though, he loses if Nakamura loses this fight to a guy like Kitakata, and I think you said it before. They're trying. I think Nakamura should win this, but it would infinitely surprise me if he did not. I mean, other than having like whenever you do a show in Osaka, is there ever another time to book him again, or do you tell him, you know what, go fight in deep for 3 or 4 times, get some wins, and come back? We always said that about Yachi, is that they should have always had him after he lost 2 or 3 fights. He should have gone to deep, had 2 or 3 fights there, get some wins, come back.
I disagree. I disagree with everything you're saying. Everything erroneous on all accounts. If you send Yachi to deep and he loses, you risk Yachi just quitting, and you can't have Yachi quit because he's too big for that. He's got a popular YouTube channel, and he's the favorite fighter of your biggest sponsor. So you just got to find people that are his level and have him fight them on Rising's platform and not let him go to deep. And he's not Ursin Yamamoto, who needs actual experience. Yachi doesn't need experience. He just needs to fix his training situation. And with Nakamura, I mean, Rising's roster is not that deep with Japanese fighters. And as long as he's putting on exciting fights, he'll always have a spot on the undercard at least, or mid-card, help build fighters up, and Osaka shows. I mean, outside of Tokyo, the most common places they go are Osaka and Nagoya, so they're always going to need someone for those Osaka shows.
Jack, what is your prediction for this fight?
I don't know. I'll side with Nakamura for this. I think that to sort of add on to what Charles said, like it's clear that, you know, he's being brought in because he's an exciting fighter, because he's from Osaka. You know, it makes sense that, in my opinion, it makes sense that he's here. But I mean, we'll see how he performs. I don't know what the odds would be of him coming back if he loses again in brutal fashion. Though I think I do want to say, you know, I think it is sort of being discounted that in Rizin he's had some really tough fights. You know, his last fight wasn't really a tough fight, but you know, I think that he's taken brutal losses before, but he's taken brutal losses to like some of the most killer dudes who've come into Rizin.
Charles?
And to close out this, I'll say that now Jack and I will know as we're watching it that every punch Nakamura takes, Andrew is cheering wherever he is.
Well, the thing is that I don't know if Kitakata has the knockout power to actually like knock out Nakamura, but I don't know if Nakamura's chin is just shot now because he's really, guys, you know, he's taken way too many shots ahead, and you know, we all know that chin doesn't last forever. And you know, Chris, what do you think? Oh, well, actually, sorry, Charles, what do you think? How do you think this fight goes?
I think in his last fight, Nakamura's last fight, I don't care about his lost attention. I don't care about his loss to Manel Cape. That's all going to happen. But his last fight was the most bothersome if you're trying to like predict how he's going to do in the future, because it looked like everything but the chin was firing on all cylinders. Like physically, athletically, he seemed fine, but he just couldn't take a punch anymore. So I'm wondering if that was just a one-time fluke, if he had been knocked out in training or something. We don't know the background on that. But if his chin truly is shot, it'll be interesting to see if he changes his strategy at all going forward, because he was always kind of a brawler. And if he's not able to do that anymore, then I expect a rapid decline.
Just to let everybody know, both their last fight, Kitakata and Nakamura, were both losses to Sawamoto. Nakamura got knocked out. Kitakata lost by decision. So take that to account for what it is. Christian, how about your thoughts on this?
Just 1 second.
Oh, okay. I'll just quickly say, listen, it'll be an exciting fight, but I hope it's not another brutal knockout of Nakamura. I also hope he doesn't lose any more teeth. I don't want to see any molars go flying in this match. I'm pretty sure Kitakata doesn't have the knockout power for that, but maybe with this fight, Nakamura can get a win, but I just don't see it happening. I would have to go with Kitakata on this. I would probably say, he's even the lesser fighter, but I think we're seeing a decline in Nakamura as a fighter, just because of all the wear and tear he's been through. Yeah, listen, that tension fight. I want that tension fight really fucked up his I don't know, whatever, his chin, like, going forward. If that just yeah, if it's kind of like a Chuck Liddell thing where after what's the fight that Chuck Liddell had that really like screwed him up for life?
Rampage.
It may have been the Rampage fight.
Rashad Evans, Rich Franklin. There's a lot of them.
But no, like I think it may have been the Rampage fight that just like it just destroyed his chin for the good.
I think Rampage was the first guy to like brutally knock him out. Then once that door was opened, everybody started doing it.
Yeah, because then Rich Franklin knocked him out years later
with a broken arm. With a broken arm.
Sorry, Christian, go ahead. What are your thoughts about this fight?
Well, my thoughts about this fight, you pretty much just described them for me. I mean, Nakamura has a lot. Well, he doesn't have a lot to lose, but when it comes down to this fight, he doesn't have a lot to gain either. I mean, I just hope that he can actually survive this fight. Maybe eke out a decision victory, but worst come to worst, I think I'm going to pick Kitakata to win this fight, even though compared to Nakamura, Kitakata doesn't really have that much of a knockout ratio, doesn't he?
Not at all, only 5.
Oh, right. I see, of course. So, yeah, as long as Nakamura doesn't, get his head used for target practice, he'll survive this fight and probably win this fight via decision. But my non-existent money is going to Kitakata.
Imagine Nakamura wins and we get like a Taigo-like upswing. And then he eventually, I know this is supposed to be at flyweight, but let's just say he goes back up to bantamweight and somehow gets like on a 5 or 6 fight win streak. And then he's like challenging for the title at some
That'd
point.
be great. I mean, I know you wouldn't like it, but I think Jack and I would be fine with it.
Actually, so yeah.
I don't have any personal grudges in this. So yeah, I'd be fine with seeing that.
This fight is near the flyweight weight. Do you think that Rizin's going to start? This is kind of like their first dab into trying to do something like flyweight wise tournament or a championship, Charles?
I don't think so. I think it's just a fight that the two agreed at. With you'll see that in a lot of Japanese promotions. They'll just have a lot of weird weights for a lot of the fights, just because it's what the two people agree to fight at.
Mm-hmm. Gotcha.
You see a lot more customization like that. Like you'll see in Rising, for example, you used to see like this match, this MMA fight has this rules, this MMA fight has this rules. I mean, the rules used to change in the matches, so I mean, fighters agree with.
Yeah, they're being a lot more consistent now, though, with their rules. I don't think they allow the shoes anymore as well, wrestling shoes.
Right. Yeah, we talked about that before.
Yeah. And now we do have to continue the trend of lovable losers.
But in a way, I just hope that if it does lead to an upswing, that that once foreign fighters come into the country again, once COVID restrictions die down, especially after the Olympics, we'll probably see more flyweights from other countries, especially from Mexico and the US, come in.
That'd be great. I would really like that to just, just see a more fledgling or upward flyweight division. Before we talk about this fight, though, I have to talk about this photo that they used for Yachi in the back. I don't know who they're hiring to airbrush their photos, but they did a horrible job. That is one of the worst airbrush photos I've ever seen. Who does their airbrushing? Those photos are good. Look at this. It looks like a doll. It looks like a plastic doll behind me.
Pandemic. It's rough times.
It's rough time. And here's the thing, Yachi's good enough. He's good looking enough already. He doesn't need this airbrushing. So I'm not so sure why they needed to do this. He's a handsome gentleman. I can confidently say. But yeah, unfortunately, yeah, the lovable losers tour continues. Yogibo's favorite, Yusuke Yachi taking on Yuki Kawana.
Yuki Tencho Kawana.
Tencho, yeah. Does it have a meaning? Because I misread it first. I thought it said techno. I did not know it said Tencho until I reread the list of fight. Does Tencho have a meaning in Japanese, Charles, that you know of?
Might mean boss.
That would make sense because he runs his own restaurant.
See that Tensho is like the guy that's like the boss of a restaurant.
Oh, okay. That makes total sense. If anybody who saw the VTR for this thing, yeah, he's a manager of a shabu shabu restaurant, Kawana. What is shabu shabu?
What the hell is that?
Shabu-shabu it's awesome. One of my favorite foods, actually. Shabu shabu is like a hot pot restaurant where it's very thinly sliced meats and vegetables, and you grab the meat with your chopsticks, and in the time that you swipe it in the water, it cooks.
Oh, is that the thing where they have the grill on the table and then you cook it yourself?
No, that's when you might be describing yakiniku.
Oh, okay, gotcha. Okay.
This has like a big boiling pot. It's like it's different. They have a bunch of hot pot stuff, but it's essentially just a bunch of meats that you put in hot water.
Gotcha. Okay. Now, obviously, the story about this is Yachi's trying to snap that. I can't remember the last time he's honestly won, but like his long Rizin losing streak. And Jack, I'm curious to know, what do you think about Yachi taking a fight like this, and what do you think are his chances of breaking this losing streak that I honestly never foresaw coming?
Well, his last win was in late 2019. He sort of redeemed himself with a soccer kick finish, if I remember correctly, and that was I think that was his first win in six. Well, out of his last 6 fights, I think he's won 1 and lost 5. So, I mean, this is obviously a very important fight for him. I mean, is it important in the sense that is he ever going to fight in Rizin again? Is he ever going to do, blah, blah, blah? I don't really know, because if they've given him this many chances, they might just give him another chance. But I mean, it's important in the sense that like you can't go on such a long losing streak without people starting to like really trash you, and I think that he didn't really have any excuses leading into his past few fights. But not to plug myself here, but when I spoke to him earlier this year, he said, he's not training with Crazy B anymore. He switched gyms. He seems like he feels like a very different person with different training regimens, and he feels like he could be a different fighter in this fight. I mean, people say that. Does it always happen? Do they always happen to look that way when they actually fight? Sometimes no, sometimes yes. But that's the attraction of this fight. Are we going to see a new Yachi, or are we going to see the same one that we've seen in his very long losing streak?
No, I wanted you to plug your interview with him because I thought it was great. I thought it was a great interview, and people should see Knockdown.
You know what?
Did he say where he's training? Is he training at Kizuna base?
I have it somewhere. I can find it.
I can look it up later. A bunch of those Crazy B people went to this gym called Kizuna base, which is like I don't think it's more of a cash grab. I don't think that's a very good gym for professional fighters to train at the moment. They don't have the staff for it yet.
Better than what Crazy B is right now, ain't it?
Crazy B is actually, now that Miyu Yamamoto is trapped in Japan because of a visa issue, she has actually done a very good job of rebuilding the gym.
When I talked to Miyu, it sounded like, that Crazy B was going to close down next day, but I don't know what happened. If she got in there, she just kicked all the old heads out and just you know what?
Well, the old manager there is a guy named Hori-san, who's also he manages Ayaka Hamasaki, Miki Motono, and a bunch of fighters. And he left, and he actually started this. He's affiliated with the Kizuna base gym, which is why you'll see Ayaka Hamasaki doing interviews there, and why you'll see Boku there, and why you'll see Yachi there. It's that gym with all the yellow and black in the background. And so that's why you see a bunch of videos there. And Kizuna base is where a lot of them went.
It's also about that. Those videos. Do you happen to remember a really big guy named Kitamura there, Charles, who they interview when he's like the I think he'd be like the strength trainer.
I do not remember that. No, is he
Okay.
like very big?
He's huge. He's a former New Japan Young Lion, and he's
Is he Ayaka
legitimately
Hamasaki's friend? Is he like steroid big?
steroid big.
Okay, I
Yes.
know. I've met that guy. Yeah, he's
Katsuya
always
Kitamura.
he goes to Ayaka Hamasaki's fights. He's a big fan of hers.
Yes, I think he also had he had an MMA fight or a kickboxing fight at one point, and he lost.
I mean, like he's like comically big, right?
Yeah, he's like
Mhm.
Yeah, I know.
super
Yeah, I
action
know who you're
figure
talking
big.
about. I know who you're talking about.
Yeah. He's built like a brick shit house, so to
Yeah,
speak.
yeah.
And
He stands out.
I just bring him up because because when he left New Japan, he kind of left under mysterious circumstances. There was all these speculations. Like one was that he got into a bike accident and he got a concussion. Others was that he was kicked out. And so then just, nothing about him, nothing about him. Suddenly one day he pops up in in Ayaka Hamazaki's confessions, and it's just like, huh?
Well, they're
What's he
friends.
doing?
Yeah, he gets to all of her. I think they train together. He's her trainer, isn't he?
Well, yeah. I think he's the strength conditioning coach for
'Cause-
Kizuna.
Yeah, because she used to be a personal trainer as well. So that makes sense that they're friends.
Okay. So yeah, that was just like one of the things that I was like, oh, okay, so that's where he is now. He's now a full-time it looks like a full-time trainer at Kizuna Base. Hey,
This Kizuna Base is actually owned by a company. They're like bodyguards. So they used to sponsor a bunch of crazy B fighters, but now they open their own gym. And Boku now trains there. Yachi trains there. I think I trains there. And so there's the whole thing. But Miyu's rebuilt the gym. They have Itsuki Hirata there now. They have
Siwoo Park is
Siwoo
there, I
Park
think?
there as well. And they have a bunch of young up-and-comers. I mean, Miyu's so famous over here. She could rebuild a gym in a week, and I think she's done a great job.
no, that's good. That's really good because especially with the track record that Crazy was on, it seems it's always good to have a rebuilding. That they're finding young fighters. I know I saw a few of the fighters on the deep card were from Crazy B as well. I don't know how they did. I hope they did good.
I've actually talked to one. There's one. Her name's Saki. There's like a girl there that you'll see on the amateur card. It's like a skinhead. Her hair's like super short.
Oh yes. I didn't know if she was Japanese at first. She looked mixed.
Yeah. No, she's a Japanese lady obsessed with Indian food. She's pretty fun, and we've done some interviews with her in the past, and we'll do some more. But so they have a lot of exciting fighters coming out of there. But back to Yachi. I mean, Yachi's had everything going for him. Okay, Yachi got the YouTube channel. Yogibo's sponsor has gone on record saying that he's his favorite fighter. His girlfriend is a famous actress in Japan.
Sorry, Charles. Has the guy from Yogibo ever said why like he's his favorite fighter? Has he ever given him like, oh, I like him because he's exciting, or I like his personality?
It was his
I think-
YouTube channel. I
Yeah,
think.
it's his YouTube channel. Yeah, he likes watching his YouTube channel.
Okay, got it.
And his girlfriend's super famous. His girlfriend's more famous than he is. She's a famous actress, does commercials, and she's in movies and TV. So he's got everything going for him. And I think the one negative thing, though, is his YouTube channel, I feel like, has overtaken his life. And he got obsessed with doing these like Jeet Kune Do videos on YouTube for a while, where he was like training with a Jeet Kune Do master. And all I could think was like, Jeet Kune Do is not applicable for MMA. Like, what the hell are you doing? Like, you need to stop taking Jeet Kune Do lessons and actually train how to fight.
He must be an Enter the Dragon fan, like all of us Americans are.
Yeah, like, call Horiguchi back up, see if he can hold pads for you or something. Get the old crazy beat thing back together.
Well, here's the thing about his YouTube channel. Is his YouTube channel really that big? Because remember the whole background between the Mikuru and Yachi fight. Remember they were Mikuru was making a big deal. Like, you got like 300,000. I got 1.2 million.
Well, that's not a fair assessment to make, because Mikuru is like abnormally popular on YouTube, even as far as YouTubers go. I mean, he has close to 2 million YouTube subscribers, which, I mean, Japan's not like the US. It's not like a ton of YouTubers. It's kind of a smaller market. But Yachi, I think, probably has the third or fourth biggest YouTube following of the rising fighters. I would say that number one is obviously Mikuru. Number two is Kai. Tenshin is around there as well. Kana Asakura also has a popular YouTube channel, but I think Yachi is more popular than Kana's channel.
Gotcha. But yeah, so
Well,
sorry, go ahead.
Sorry to interrupt, but
Yes.
like, to talk about the Asakura brothers' success, it's like insane the numbers they do. Like, when you look at the numbers they do, you sort of question like, okay, well, why are you fighting? Because like the money they make, assuming they don't get like demonetized and stuff, is insane numbers. And I hear they even get money off of like donations through Instagram lives and stuff where people can gift them gifts during Instagram lives.
I mean, they're selling Mikado designed houses.
Right.
I mean, but I mean, his post fight video on his own channel, what, 4 days, 4 million views, just absolutely insane numbers from the Asakura brothers.
And is that so? What is it about Yachi's channel that made it go up? I don't know, Jack, if you did any research on that. If you didn't, I guess I'll defer that to Charles. Did you find out what made his channel go up?
I'd say
no.
Simple answer is that Yachi and Mikado have been doing it for a long time, and that they were doing it before it was a trend, and they built this kind of core audience. And every Japanese fighter has a YouTube channel now, and they're trying to copy the success, but people are like, we already got Mikado and we already got Yachi. Plus, they make high quality videos. I mean, Mikado's got a whole team of people doing his stuff, and Yachi's doing fun stuff too. I mean, people just like their personalities. Plus, people like the fact that Yachi's got a super famous girlfriend, so I think they like to see aspects of her in his videos as well.
He also does. He does have a likable personality as well. There's something likable about him that just like, you know how just some people just. Yeah, sorry. Go ahead.
Yachi did like a bunch of like during the coronavirus, he did a bunch of like online drinking parties where people could drink with him on YouTube, and one of the frequent guests was like Boku, and he's friends with like this Japanese, I think he's half Japanese, half Brazilian comedian who's famous for like dressing like Mario, and he's in a lot of his YouTube videos as well. So
that's so funny.
I think it's just that they were the first people to do it.
I remember on the confession shows, Yachi was an interesting character on there. I remember him like talking about when he was on his losing streak, like back in like 2019, he was saying like, if I lose this fight, I might shave my head. Like he would just like say these things just to play with people.
Well, that's the whole thing. Remember, like when he first started fighting, they're all like, "Oh, he's so cool," but then when he talks, he sounds like an idiot. So I think people just are kind of endeared to him.
Well, so from my firsthand experience of Yachi, so at the open weight, heavyweight Grand Prix, back in 2016. He had the fight with Manny Pacquiao's little brother, Mario Sismundo, and right after they give the microphone, whatever. I don't know what he said, but after that fight, like I heard girls going crazy for him. He would say, he said "Konbanwa Tokyo" or whatever he said, and you just hear so he does. He's definitely has something that the audience loves about him, even though he's been on this losing streak.
Plus, I think his popularity has shown that the losses don't seem to affect it.
Yeah,
which is a big thing for Rising as well.
Now the question is though, will this be the fight that it does happen? And Jack, you talked with him. He sounds like he's changed up his everything. Hopefully. I don't know if that also includes a mental coach or whatever. Sometimes fighters they'll get like a mental coach to help them prepare for their fights. But in your talks with him, how do you think this is gonna be the fight that will snap his losing streak?
Listen, I mean, anyone can say anything that can try to make you believe that they're a changed person. Do I want to believe that he has changed his regimen and he now visits more than one gym and he's doing these things which can completely change his style as a fighter? I do want to believe that, but I can't really believe it until I see it. So I think my answer is, this is sort of a political answer.
Mm-hmm.
I do want to see this as the fight where he turns things around, but I mean, all I've heard so far is talk, which I hope is true, and soon we'll find out if it is true.
Charles, you've been following Yachi and you've been following Kawana longer than I've been paying attention to the recent JMA surge. What do you think? Do you think that this will be an easy fight for him, or you think that Yachi has his number?
I think that the last Yachi fight's kind of misleading because the guy he fought had a losing record, and his name escapes me for a second. Judy Ohara. Judy Ohara is like on this upward surge right now, and he's like a stud over and deep. And Yachi and him had a very tough fight. I mean, he got hurt, and he hurt him, and they went back and forth. So I mean, Yachi is still a very tough fighter, and he's hard to beat if you don't put him out right away. And so I think this is a fight where if he does resurge, this is the fight where it happens. If this fight doesn't go well for him, it's probably pretty close to the end of his fighting career.
You think he becomes full-time YouTuber if that's what happens?
I mean, I imagine the YouTube money dwarfs whatever money he makes fighting. So yeah.
Chris, what do you think? Does Yachi snap that losing streak? Do we get? Is this going to be the year of Yachi? What do you think?
Well, first of all, Jack, please plug that interview you were talking about earlier as you leave our podcast here today. I think a lot of people want to know more about it. Second of all, I mean, I was barely even paying attention to all the extra stuff y'all are talking about Yachi, aside from the fact that he's Yogibo's favorite loser. But still, when it comes down to both of these fighters, obviously they have international experience. Yachi with Pacific Extreme Combat, pour one out. May they rest in peace. Yuki Tencho Kawana with the PFL. And I think that it's going to be a lot of excitement to go around with this fight. But you also have to remember, this is Kawana's Rizin debut. He's normally a Shudo fighter.
Sorry, Chris, gotta correct you on that. He fought Takeda at 24 in a pretty boring fight.
Right.
It was a pretty boring fight. It was like it's like
I think I remembered us, doing a live Twitch stream about that fight. I think I remember that.
I think I actually dozed off because I was so bored during that fight.
Yeah, I was the one doing most of the damn commentary. Thanks for nothing. But still, point of the matter is, this is Kawana's second Rizin fight. This is Yachi's 7th, 8th Rizin fight.
I don't know. But it's like, as you could see, like, I don't know if you can see on his thing, like he has a lot of fights under his belt.
Under his belt, yeah, obviously. But still, point of the matter is, I think you have to look at the experience factor here. You have to look at the fact that Yachi has fought in Rizin more times than Kawana. You have to look at the fact that even though Kawana has the exposure with the PFL, Yachi has fought a lot more. I mean, Yachi has fought a lot more times, especially considering the fact that he's fought a lot more on foreign soil compared to Kawana. I mean, not trying to discredit Pacific Extreme Combat, even though they're now a dead promotion, but still, point of the matter is, I think Yachi's going to win this fight and probably win this fight via knockout. Because I think that in order for people to really get behind his comeback, he's going to really need to show that he's fighting worth the damn. Otherwise, he'll be just like King Reina Miura, fighting for relevancy.
I'm going to have to say that this is not going to be Yachi's return to victory, unfortunately.
You don't like fun things.
Was that sorry?
You don't like fun things. You don't like storybook endings.
Not that I don't like storybook. It's the problem is, so I know so Drew O'Hara fight did not bother me at all. That was a tough fight. It could have gone either way, and he showed a lot of that. I'll tell you the fight that sincerely made me rethink Yachi's status as a fighter was when he got knocked down by Satoshi De Souza, and that should not have happened to Yachi. Satoshi's kickboxing or just stand up in general is I did not think was at the level that Yachi's was, and the fact that he didn't, Souza didn't need to submit him. That's how much dominated Yachi was in that fight. So Souza was on top position. He could have gotten any submission he wanted to, blindfolded. And the fact
couldn't you argue that Yachi had no way of seeing that coming?
I would even argue more. Yeah, but here's Satoshi doesn't strike me as a guy who has powerful punches, and I'm not so sure how Yachi, here's the thing. Okay, Gustavo fight. The reason why he got knocked out is because his hair got in his way. He didn't see that. He literally did not see Gustavo's punch coming into him, so he couldn't prepare for it. understandable. When he had the Gomi fight, I think he got knocked down by Gomi, but Gomi's always been a powerful puncher guy. So Souza knocked out Kitooka, and I'm forgetting the other guy in the first round.
Hey, Souza's jacked, and he trains a Shrek. I mean, he's gonna have some big punches.
I think a fighter on Yachi's level. I think that Yachi is a much like, I'm surprised he never got a UFC run, or like even got like.
Wasn't he on the Ultimate Fighter TV show?
Was he?
I thought he was on that Ultimate Fighter Japan.
He may have been.
Maybe wrong.
But like, I just don't see. I don't see. I think Jack, you said it best. Words don't have any meaning. Actions do, and just from what I've seen in that Souza fight, not some again the jury fight doesn't bother me so much, but just that Souza fight really, it made me think that this is. I think his time might be passing as a fighter. At this point, I think this is actually a really tough fight as well to put him up against Kawana. Like that really surprised me that Kawana's not this is not some slouch. This is a guy who at one point had a long winning streak in Japanese MMA and really only had significant losses in PFL, but that was because he was facing like his competition went straight up. But Kawana's again no slouch. Plus, also if he's the boss, listen, I can't follow the guy who goes by the name the boss. I have to go with Kawana on this.
I'll say I do agree with Jack as well. I don't think Yachi's just recommit. I mean, he's doing YouTube, Famous Girlfriend, all that stuff. There's no way he's training as much as he should be.
He might be physically.
Well, let me clarify. I want to say, I think that he has said he's doing different stuff, and when I say it's just words, he could totally be having this new training regimen that is like completely true and everything. But it's just like someone could be doing that, or someone could just be saying that. You know what I mean? And we'll find out on Sunday which one it is. Honestly,
and also the thing is that physically training for MMA fight is different than mentally training. You could do all the physical stuff all you want. If your mind is not in that fight, that will, I always point to, the GSP Matt Serra 1 fight. GSP, great physical shape, but his father had passed away the week of or the week before, and he was so off his game for that fight. And that was not the GSP that we all that was dominating everybody before.
I'd also like to make a correction. He was not on the Ultimate Fighter. I don't know why he thought he was for some reason.
I thought so. I was like, maybe he was, or was I like thinking, misremembering? Maybe there were so many people who were on Ultimate Fighter at one point, and then like they
it all blurs together. It all blurs together in my mind.
Also one of the most random things. I don't know if any of you know this. Yusuke Yachi fought Volkanovski back in PXC.
Mm-hmm.
PXC had some good fights.
Just imagine that, it's like one of those things that's like I can't believe those two paths crossed at some point. It's kind of it's not like Otsuka where Otsuka's been fighting since he's like 12 years old. He's fought everybody at every point, so that doesn't surprise me. But when you say like Yachi fought Volkanovski, that's like, oh wow,
it's incredibly random.
I like finding those random fights on like Tapology. Like you'll see, I'll be like researching a fighter for a show, and I'll see like some fighter who like has spent their entire career in like Shudo Japan will just have like a 2007 like Italy regional loss to somebody. It's like, how did they end up there? It's always funny how some fights just end up like that.
My
personal favorite was Ben Rothwell's shoot boxing win.
Wow, really? Does that shit even exist on the internet?
I've never seen the fight, but he fought for shoot boxing.
I have no. Who would he fight? Who's a heavyweight in shoot boxing? They must have got an MMA fighter.
I'll go look it up. Give me a second.
Yesterday, I was researching the UFC card that's on today, and I saw that one of the prelim fighters, Julija Stolyarenko, like a few years ago, fought like a Lethwei in Japan card and like defeated someone on one of those shows. It was just one of the weirdest sort of details.
That's what's gonna upset me. Is I hope the next generation of MMA fighters has these weird kind of like 6 degrees of separation of like weird fights or out of place fights that a lot of the older generation has. Like this Japanese fighter has 5 draws in his first 5 MMA fights or something like that.
He fought some Japanese heavyweight at shoot boxing in 2005.
That's so like I'm just trying. So was this before? No, so this had to be before IFL.
Yes, it was before the IFL, dude.
That's just so weird. Just like, how does Ben Rothwell get booked for a shoot boxing match when he's
Someone called him. Want to fight in Japan? He's like, I always want to go to Japan. I mean, how the hell does that even happen?
Now, unfortunately for the next fight, I'm gonna just say about
by the way, before we continue on with the rest of that, did any of y'all see Yuki Kawana's random ass dancing through the Rizin English language Twitter page?
Oh yeah, I did. Yeah, it was. I don't know what he was trying to do. Is that like his?
He was trying to do the bootleg Macarena.
He's got no rhythm. He's got no rhythm. I gotta say, as a white man, I can say he definitely has no rhythm.
Hey, easy for you to say.
But I will say though, I do love the little snippets that they put of them like in the photo booth and the photo room on the Rizin English Twitter page, where you just see them making all these funny poses. I think that's really cool. I don't know why. I enjoy seeing just random stuff like that. Now this next fight though, I am not looking forward to, and I will explain why later.
And you know what? We kind of skipped over this particular fight because we were supposed to have been talking about the Yachi Kawana fight in this time slot, but
that's more important than this fight. I personally think.
I understand, but still, it's Dark Rakuto Shirakawa versus Jin Aoi.
So these two have fought on Rizin before. Both have fought Kotetsu Boku. One struggled. Actually, they kind of both struggled. One finished him. Shirakawa did, and Aoi somehow could not finish Boku. Shirakawa also took on Kyoei Hagiwara and was winning up until the 3rd round when he was just gained until he got demolished on the feet, literally on the feet, knocked out on his feet, as they say. Normally, I would love to see a fight between two prospective featherweights, especially because that's Rizin's focusing on that division, giving a lot of focus on that division. It looks like. I don't know if these two fighters though. I'm just like I feel like I'm not excited to see these two. Jack, you've seen these guys fight in Rizin, what do you think about this fight? These two.
I mean, maybe I'm like the most optimistic person on the planet, but like whenever I see matchups, I'm never like, oh my god, I have to sit through this. Like worst case scenario, this takes 15 minutes out of my life, and I can just sort of, if it's really boring, it can just sort of coast in the background while I look at Twitter or something, which I wouldn't do because I watch these things closely, of course.
Of course, because you do results as well. You do results.
Yes,
live.
Of course. But I mean, this isn't a bad match. Both these guys are coming off a win. I think it's interesting that Shirakawa had his loss to Hagiwara, and it was like you mentioned, one where he sort of got demolished, but he bounced back from that, and both these guys make a strong case for being in Rizin because they won last time they were here, and this fills a spot on a card which is only 13 fights in general, and a lot of them are kickboxing fights which go much shorter than MMA fights. So I'm not against having it on here, and we'll just see how it goes.
Charles, I definitely know that Shirakawa because I think he's fought in Deep a number of times. What do you think about this fight? The booking of this fight between these two?
I think I know that they both struggled against Boku, but I think it was kind of not really. Boku's still, the weird thing about like an old fighter like Boku is he still has a lot of the technical skills. It's just his chin is gone. So Boku can still move around the ring and has very good hands. So, and plus, it was probably the biggest opponent either one of them has fought. So I think that might have been why those fights were kind of weird. Because Boku's still a very good fighter. He just can't take a punch, which is kind of depressing in his own regard. But that aside, I think that they're both very. It's kind of like a coin toss match to me. I think they're both very evenly matched. and I wouldn't be able to pick which one wins. And I think Rizin is just looking for the next generation with this, and it's kind of, if it's a boring fight, as Jack said, just 15 minutes, no one cares. If something great happens, next thing you know, Rising's got another contender. So,
do you know why Shirakawa goes by the nickname Dark?
Dark.
That's his nickname, and sometimes he's advertised as Dark Shirakawa.
Edgy.
But we call him Dark Rakuto.
Right? Oh, sometimes I see the kanji and it's Shirakawa kanji, and sometimes it's Deep changes up with him all the time.
Oh, okay.
And Rizin also does the same thing as well. He's sometimes referred to as Dark Rakuto, Dark Shirakawa, just Dark.
I have no idea why he goes by Dark.
Another one of those we were talking about the deep, the weird MMA nicknames. Probably my favorite though is Shotaro Dabana goes by Captain Africa.
But that's because ain't he originally from the DRC, the Democratic Republic of the Congo?
I don't know if Shotaro Dabana is from. If he is, I would never have guessed that.
He's clearly spent some really long amount of time in a different country, because you look at his Instagram and he's somewhere else. He's in Japan since the pandemic.
What Captain though? Why not Commander? Isn't Commander higher than Captain?
Because Captain America, you can just make your own sort of parody, I guess. I don't know.
Okay, I've been watching a lot of Battlestar Galactica lately, so Commander.
And I don't think he's been watching a lot of Battlestar Galactica.
The Commander has been like on my radar of like, oh, that's the highest rank. Christian, what do you think about this fight? Because I know we both watched, we commentated over the Jin Aoi Boku fight, and then we saw Shirakawa and Boku, and we were very critical of how these two were fighting against Boku. How do you think a fight like this goes, where we saw a hesitancy in their respective fights against the same guy? Do you think they bring that over in this fight, or do you think we see they realize, yeah, maybe we have to put on more of a killer instinct for this fight?
Well, in all honesty, I think that when both of these men fought, Kotetsu no Face Boku, wouldn't you say they both felt a little bit exposed?
Exposed in a way, but more along the lines of just, it was, I don't know what. Yeah, it just seemed like this weird hesitancy, this tentativeness. Like they were still afraid that Boku could knock him out. And the other thing was, I think the fight with Aoi didn't even go to the ground once. And I was wondering if maybe that he was afraid that like Boku was gonna could out grapple him, which I don't really think is a Boku. It's not really a Boku thing to do. So it was just really strange to see these two young prospects just kind of almost have a little, just not, there's no sense of like, okay, I'm on the big stage, I gotta show something. It didn't feel right. It was the wrong type of fight I want from them, I guess you could say.
Right. But in a way, I do feel that, Rakuto obviously being the very inexperienced of the two when it comes down to him and Aoi, I think he had, a lot more issues with Boku than Aoi did against Boku. At least from how we seen it.
I will say though, in the end, he did finish. Dark did finish Boku in the end.
Right. Of course. So stupid me.
But in fairness, Boku was. I think I did see that. I think it was. I'm trying to remember who. Jack, were you on that show with us? Was that you?
Rizin 20.
That had Boku and Dark.
Maybe, I don't know.
It was Rizin 24 actually.
Okay.
It was 23 or 24, but still.
Because I remember, whoever we had on said that he thought that Boku was winning up until the third round. And I do recall rewatching that fight, I'm like, I could kind of see that. I could kind of see how Boku, you could say that. Not by like any wide margin, but just he was striking more efficiently.
Yeah, I think he he didn't like he wasn't in any like danger in that fight, no? Until
Not
the
until
end.
the end. Yeah, not until he finally got cold clocked.
Wasn't Boca just sticking and moving?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But in a way, when it comes down to this fight, damn it, what am I trying to say? I think that the younger fighter, Dark Rakuto, he's probably going to take most of the advantage in this fight. I think that he's probably going to have a lot more to gain off of getting the win over veterans such as Aoi.
I do think that Dark is a much better fighter than his record says. It says 9-8-1. I think he's a very fun guy to watch. Watched a bunch of his fights on Deep as well. He's a what do
you know what? Shit,
Hmm?
You're probably right, because Shirakawa's the veteran. Aoi is the fighter who has the less experience, but I still think that Dark Rakuto is going to win this fight.
Charles, have you seen Dark fight on Deep cards before?
I have not, but I think I'm actually looking into his nickname for you. He was also from Outsiders. He's from Deep, but he's from Outsiders before that.
Yeah, he's a Mikuru guy as well. I forgot.
Yeah, exactly. So
yeah,
might be.
And Nakamura Brothers trainee, as Damian Brown mentioned in his little promo piece for the show.
Well, I mean, like, I don't
know.
So
I've come to an answer of your question of why his nickname is Dark.
Okay. I'm going. It is. I think you said it best, Charles. It is a coin toss. It is. It feels like this fight is 50-50. Gun to my head, I feel like Shirakawa might have the more of the killer instinct in this fight, and I think I would hope that he has the intuition to realize I need to end this fight in a great way, so that I can come back again. So I'm not relegated just being a Deep guy. I don't know if Aoi has fought since the Rizin fight, but if he has, I hope that I hope he comes into the same thing as well. But on the surface, from what I've studied these two, I feel like Shirakawa has more of that killer instinct, and he is with Mikuru. So I don't know, maybe Mikuru, cursed at him or whatever after his fight and says, "You gotta do better" or something, or whatever Mikuru does to abuse his underlings to get them motivated. If there's anybody who needs that, though, it's definitely those the three guys from Deep that Mikuru is from the Mikuru Contender Series.
Charles, what did you said you found the origin of his nickname?
Yeah, so he was called Dark back in his Outsider days, where it originated, and everyone at his gym at that time had the nickname Dark. It was kind of like it was Thai style. It was kind of like, yes, exactly. It's like the date people where they're it was always Namtaka Dark, like your name then Dark.
Listen, I love the date team because
fighting tomorrow.
Yeah, by the way, just everybody know, Pancras 322 tomorrow. You can get it on Tiget.net. No whatever. No
Japanese VPN required.
Exactly. And listen, I love the Date group so much. They are just it is the most interesting. They're not the best camp, but they are the most interesting, and you just never know what's going to come out of them.
I think it is pronounced Date.
It's pronounced Date. Oh, okay, it's pronounced Date. Okay.
I interviewed her before her last fight, the last Pancras show.
So that would mean in kanji is pronounced Deto, right?
Yeah, I think she told me it's like pronounced like the fruit. Yeah. So.
The great thing is apparently nobody knows where they actually train. Is that true?
Well, I mean, they train in the mystical Indian royal martial arts. It's a fusion of yoga and the secret martial arts of the royal family. The first martial art, in fact.
Jack, you probably have no idea what the fuck we're talking about.
It sounds like an anime plot, dude.
Yeah, it does. It does.
Speaking of which, one of the dates fighting tomorrow actually fought Kai Asakura.
I'm guessing probably this date person did not win in the end.
No, it was a TKO loss second round.
Probably. I think if they won, we would have known their name.
Exactly.
We would have been like, oh yeah, that fight.
But I'm so glad we get to move on from the smaller portion of the card to the real meat and potatoes, the Arby's,
Yes.
McDonald's
the
BTS
second
meal.
part of the Rizin Bantamweight Grand Prix. And let me go ahead and run down the matches while you put up the photos.
Mhm.
We got Kenta Takizawa versus, and I'm going to say this like Lenny Hart, Masakasu, Ashikan Judan, Iminari. We got Kazuma Kuramoto versus Alan Yoshihiro Yamaniha.
Hold on a second, Christian. I gotta go at the same pace that you're going.
Yeah.
So hold that. Kazuma Karamoto. Sorry, I have 1,000. Oh, here we are.
We got Kazuma Kuramoto versus Alan Yoshihiro Yamaniha. As y'all know, Yamaniha is a former UFC signee who has made waves throughout the world of combat sports, especially competing alongside his Banzai Jiu-Jitsu teammates, the Souza brothers, and Hideki Shrek Sakine. We got Takafumi Otsuka taking on Hiroki Shion Yamashita. Old Purple Tassel Trunks, Otsuka is fighting again in Rizin, and Shion is fighting, I think, for the second time in this promotion, right?
Mm-hmm.
And last but most certainly not least, Andrew, you talked with him. You got Kentaro Masakuri, aka Yuto Hokamura, taking on Kuya Ito. And of course, we all know Kentaro just wants to add another highlight to his record, and Ito just wants to survive. So let's go ahead and get the first bout out the way that Andrew talked about. Takizawa versus the leg lock gremlin, Masakazu Iminari, who is fresh off a career in that damn one championship that just was lackluster.
So, random piece of information. This is going to be Iminari's 60th fight. So, keep that in mind. What was I going to? Oh, yeah. So, Charles, I'm curious to know. Remember, we talked about, I was surprised that Takeshi Kasugai was in this tournament, and you made the point that he's the heat champion. And I was like, you know what? That kind of does make sense. Iminari is not a champion anywhere. He's coming off a loss from one. He's lost a bunch of his grappling bouts previous to this. Out of all the people who were invited into this tournament, I will legitimately say, well, unless you have a reason, why do you think that Iminari was put in this tournament?
Because Deep wanted him to be in the tournament.
Fair enough.
I thought it was basically because of name value, CJ. I mean, you don't think it's that because he has fought in Deep and obviously that damn one championship.
You need to do the Iminari pose and put your fingers like this when you do that. I think for a lot of these fights, especially the Deep, who Rizin has a great working relationship with, they go to Sayaki and they go, we need some deep fighters for this tournament. And Iminari has always been seen as a fighter, much like Hitaoka and Shinya Aoki, who did a lot for Deep. And so he would be one of the fighters that they would say doesn't have anything going for him right now, put him in the tournament. And so that's why he's there. He has a ton of name value. He's weird. People like talking about him, funny interviews. And the weird thing about Iminari is if you enter his realm, he can beat anybody. I mean, like the blueprint to beat him is there. It's very obvious how to beat him. But if you go to his world, you will lose.
What has surprised me throughout his career? Well, yeah, so first of all, if you look at, I know we don't have the data behind him, but he has exactly one knockout on his record.
Wasn't that an up kick?
Yes,
an up kick, right?
I think it was not with intention to knock out. He tried to he did the Iminari roll, and then he tried to transition to a submission, but it was kind of like his opponent was getting up, and he just happened to kick his opponent. I don't think I don't want to say he wasn't trying to knock out his opponent, but I don't think he was expecting it.
It also would have been illegal anywhere but Japan or like Brazil. It would have been like an illegal up kick.
Oh, exactly. Yeah. It's one of those like bizarre, like it's the only way that he could ever get a knockout. That's not an insult. I think he'd even admit, listen, I'm not the boxing guy.
It's kind of like, it kind of reminds me of like, is it similar to when Anderson Silva got disqualified for up kicking Yushin Okami?
Yes.
I think it's very similar to that if it was legal.
Yeah.
Wait a minute. You're talking about the Rumble on the Rocks fight, not the UFC fight, right?
Yeah.
Right. The DQ.
I do think it's odd that Iminari is in this. I guess it kind of makes sense, but I was just I always try to figure out like how people like get into tournament. You have the qualifying match, or you're a champion in another organization.
Outside of the deep stuff, I mean, he fought for Dream. He's a big deal. He fought a lot of big guys, a lot of famous fights. People know who Iminari is, and he's also got this like mystique of scariness around him. He'll rip your knee out. He'll rip your foot off. People are excited to watch him fight. Plus, he beat Mike Brown, who's a huge star in Japan now.
Oh, yes.
He beat Mike Brown, who trains Kyoji Horiguchi.
Unintentionally famous Mike Brown.
Mm-hmm.
Plus, Jack, I mean, it almost guarantees that we'll get to hear some very strange Shinyaoki comments and ramblings and podcasts. You'll hear a very low, raspy voice that's barely audible.
I can't. Does the average Japanese person? I don't know how much Japanese you understand, Charles, or your wife, but I can't even understand. Like I've sent like some interviews to friends of mine who speak Japanese, and they can't even understand Aoki. Like they can only understand like every other word because his voice is just so destroyed by smoking.
There's two things going for him. His voice is terrible, and he's really smart, so he says things that aren't normal. So
like when he said that he left his family, or like after his last one, he said he left his family or something, or like
he went to like a really high college, so he's like highly educated. So he uses like really old metaphors and language that people don't say anymore.
If it weren't for the cauliflower ears, he looks like a nerd who's late for his class to science at Nippon University.
I mean, I'd be lying if as soon as Iminari was announced for Rizin, I didn't immediately start sending pictures of him dressed like a schoolgirl with Shinyaoki to my wife. So,
Jack, so with this fight, you obviously we've seen Takizawa fight. He's not had the greatest run in Rizin. Iminari though goes without saying, just like where his status as a fighter is, and for guys, they named he has his own move named after him. That's how good of a fighter he is.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think about a fight like this where Iminari has been good at one thing his entire career, but it's also been his downfall? If you know how to defend a heel hook, you know how to defend against Iminari roll, you basically have him defeated. And Takizawa is a striker. Do you think that Iminari has any chance in this fight, in his 60th fight coming up?
Well, I would say this is my pick for this fight would be Kenta. But what's so weird about these 4 fights, and I guess this is just sort of the odds you play when you do a draw for a tournament, is that you don't really know what you're going to get. And Rizin were sort of lucky in the sense that their first 4 fights that were on the last show were ones where basically the bigger fighter came out on top each time. There wasn't a fight where it was 2 real Goliaths in the division and one of them had to sort of get eliminated. But what's sort of weird about these 4 fights, and you guys can disagree with that, by the way, what's sort of weird about these 4 fights is like it doesn't really matter who wins. Like these are just sort of like these are some of the smaller names in the lineup, and this is one of those fights where I think Takizawa is going to win, but the implications of this fight don't really exist. Like that's just how I feel.
Just to let everybody know, in the pre-fight video, Iminari claims that he has some surprises in store for this fight, and he said he's going to knock out Takizawa as well.
Full shit.
I mean,
isn't that just like every single pre-fight interview though?
But I don't.
Iminari's full of shit. If you've ever seen an Iminari interview, he doesn't take interviews seriously at all and just says whatever comes to his mind.
I mean, how many knockouts does Masakazu Iminari have?
One, and I think it was really by accident. I really don't think he was intending to knock out his opponent. It just happened his foot hit the right spots. But like, I mean, okay, so I think it's fair to say. Remember, Charles, we were doing like weird fantasy booking, like, oh, Shuto's gonna knock out Kai, or Kai was going to guillotine choke Shuto to sleep or something. If Iminari. If Iminari knocks out Takizawa must quit. He must shave his head. He must quit. He has to apply for a job under Kawana's Shabu Shabu restaurant. Or actually, no, I forgot. Takizawa, apparently he has a large following on TikTok or something. Maybe he can make that a career. I think.
Well,
He
as Jack alluded to, Iminari owns his own jiu-jitsu gym now, and he
yes.
does grappling tournaments. His entire world is great. He's like even more into grappling now than he used to be. So there's like no way he's been working on his striking at all going into this fight.
It's kind of sad though that Iminari. I am a huge Iminari fan. I've been a fan for as long as I've been paying attention to Japanese MMA. At one time, you could you got put into the Iminari role, and he grabbed your foot, you were done for. But even in his grappling tournaments now, it seems like combat sports has moved way ahead of him, and he's still doing the same stuff. But the problem is he hasn't adapted that stuff to what the modern combat sports. It's almost like he's still fighting like it's like 2005 deep, where nobody knows what a foothold is. And
I don't think that's necessarily fair because the grappling tournament's a completely different context, where most of what he's doing is in an MMA context, and there's a whole leg lock revolution going on in the grappling world. So everyone's gonna be very aware of what he's doing. Where most MMA fighters, they come up, we're not even allowed to do heel hooks, and so a lot of his moves people won't be that familiar with. I think even to this day, they should. They'll obviously be very aware that he's going for them.
He had a fight, a grappling match against Tom Halpern.
Mm-hmm.
He went for the Iminari roll. Tom Halpern reversed the Iminari roll. I don't know. You probably saw the video of it, Charles. And heel hooked Iminari.
That's brutal. Live long enough to become the enemy, villain, I guess.
I want Iminari to win this so bad. I think, Chris, you want to see Iminari win this as well, right?
Yes, I do want to see Iminari win this fight so bad. But mostly because of the fact that the dude has history in Pride, in Dream, in Zest, in Pancrase. Not going to mention one, obviously. But still, we all know that a win for Iminari is a win to keep his legitimate legacy alive. As far as Takizawa, he's going to be fighting to survive in this case.
I don't know if there'll be a fight.
This fight isn't going to break his legacy or anything. I'm pretty sure that's solidified. That's not going anywhere. Even if he fights Jake Paul, that's not going anywhere.
In my podcast with Shu essentially thinks this is just Deep getting him a payday so they can help his gym out. So I don't think Shu thinks he's that into it. But I just hope it's a competitive fight. Whoever wins, it's going to be great. But I think it's going to be a fun fight.
You know how?
As long as Iminari does weird stuff, if Iminari sits in the middle of the cage and tries to come down, or does this weird karate thing from Cage Rage, does any of that stuff, I'll be fine.
Oh yeah, his 2 Cage Rage victories, if we remember correctly, against Robbie Oliver and John Silva, the latter of which was shown on Showtime for an Elite XC event 13 years ago.
When his opponent came out with a decapitated Japanese head, stop Asian head.
Oh Lord! Now I'm gonna see that fight again, CJ. Thanks for etching that into my head.
In the case of Takizawa, Jack, I'm curious to know, hear from you. Were you surprised when he was announced for this tournament? He did win over Kintaro, but then he lost against Okazaki, what I presumed at the time was a qualifying match for this thing. Were you surprised that they kind of gave it to, and he also lost his previous fight before that to Ogikubo. So he's 1-2 in Rizin. Were you surprised that they gave a 1-2 fighter an opportunity in this tournament?
When they said it was going to be a 16-man tournament, I think we all knew there was going to be at least, and keep in mind, this is in the pandemic where they can't bring people in, or at least not without great trouble. We knew there was going to be some people in the bracket who were going to be, filling out the tournament. And he just happens to be one of those guys. Was I surprised it was him specifically? I guess, but it's sort of, we knew there was going to be guys like this where it's okay, who's a bantamweight? Who's fought in Rizin before? Who can put on a decent fight? Okay, well, he checks all those boxes, so he gets into the tournament.
Oh, sorry. Charles, were you surprised 1-2 fighter was put in this tournament?
I think Jack said it perfectly. I mean, I think when they said it's 16 fighters, we all knew that there were going to be some interesting moments. We're like, oh, they're in the tournament. And they had to kind of even it out. I think the true tell of this tournament is what they decided to put in the Tokyo Dome card and what they decided to put on the Osaka card really tells you who they're looking to win the tournament.
Oh, of course. My big conspiracy theory. So, Okazaki had beaten him, and I think, and I don't know if you can confirm this with Shu, but it looks after Olka beat him, I think they were planning on putting Olka in this tournament, but then Olka, I think, is moving up the featherweight.
I believe he is, yes.
So they're like, oh shit, if Olka's moving up, who do we get? Who's the last guy he fought? Takizawa? Okay, so I think that's my big conspiracy theory why Takizawa got put into this, because if Olka had said yes, I don't think they would have put Takizawa in. That's my personal belief. Charles, I didn't ask you. Who do you think wins this fight, and why is it going to be Iminari, and why does he go to the finals?
I mean, it's Takizawa's fight to win, in my opinion, as long as he's not stupid enough to go to the ground. Like, it's one thing to lose a grappling match to someone like that's obviously devoted their entire life to grappling, but Iminari is just so good at the few things that he does really well. I mean, just crazy Iminari rolls, getting it to the ground. He just needs to do what Bibiano Hernandez did in his dream days, which is whenever Iminari tries to get to the ground, just back up and stand there and wait for Iminari to stand back up.
Do you think Takizawa is going to at all tread into that deep water of, I'm going to go to the ground for him? Or you think Takizawa, Takizawa, he's Takizawa, he's not afraid. This is a guy who does not seem to he's not
should be.
He tried, remember he grappled pretty well with Okazaki and almost had him. He had him in that arm triangle choke, not the arm triangle choke, the anaconda choke.
Very, very different consequences. I remember I'll never forget an interview that Iminari did. I believe it's with who was it called? It was but some company was translating interviews with these fighters, and Iminari's there. And they're interviewing him. He's being interviewed by the pen lady from the UFC with the big fluffy pen. And
who are you talking about? But her
Mizutama, Mizutama, and Shinya Aoki's in the background, and Shinya Aoki says, "Watch out for him. He's an asshole. He tries to hurt you." I'm like, Iminari will try to hurt you if you go down and grapple with him. And so I just wouldn't. If I was the coach, I'd say, don't do it. You clearly have a striking advantage. Why would you go somewhere he has a chance of winning?
We have seen those fighters who I don't know, out of arrogance or confidence or stupidity. I mean, like the Dominator fight against Satoshi, where he was like, "Yeah, I'll go to the ground with him." It's like
we've seen the results of all of those fights too, haven't we?
I mean, here's I think also a lot of fighters, like, they don't like to be told, or at least some don't have this mentality of, don't do this, because it's it's almost like challenging them to do it. Oh, this guy's a striker, don't strike with him. You know what? Let me see if I can strike with him. Fighters do that often. They don't. It's an athletic mentality of, like, it's mentally telling. Sorry, go ahead.
I'll say if he's wise, he'll just beat him on the feet.
Oh, absolutely. I don't think, like I said, my pick is Iminari, just because it would just be so fun to see him go on. I think you're right,
amazing,
though.
yeah.
It would. I don't know if he's taking this tournament seriously. Do you know if Aoki will be in his corner, or probably not?
I have no idea who he's training with. I mean, he's not affiliated with a gym or anything. I assume it's just him and Kitoka and Aoki. He has his own jiu-jitsu gym he teaches at.
If he has Aoki in his corner, well, first of all, that would be very entertaining if he has Aoki in his corner, because Rizin been doing this thing where they have, like, the blue corner and red corner videos, and I am hoping that if Aoki is in his corner, that they come out with those videos so we could just hear what Aoki's screaming what absurdities he's screaming to Iminari.
I mean, no one will be able to understand it. You'll just hear a low, gravelly voice.
Oh, well, it'll be quiet. Nobody will be cheering, so you will be able to actually hear him. So I'm assuming they're probably not going to. They're going to discourage the audience to cheer.
Yeah, they have people in the crowd for that.
But yeah, I just want to. I want to just see. I want to see this end with an Iminari roll into a footlock heel hook like the good old days.
That's the. So with this fight, you're looking for the storybook ending. That's good.
Not even a storybook ending. I don't like. What's the
For
storybook?
once,
Sorry, what was that?
for once, you're looking for the storybook ending. You always want the person who's supposed to win to lose.
Absolutely
You're so
not.
evil.
So I'm going to defend my this next fight because this is a storybook fight that I want to go the storybook.
Let me go ahead and say it for you. You're only defending Hiroki Shion Yamashita because you think that he has what it takes to become the next Rizin Bantamweight champion. Is that it, Andrew?
I don't think I would go that far, but just because seeing a fighter who came into Rizin 7-8, now 8-8, and defeat Otsuka and then go on to the finals, I think it'll be different. It's unexpected. It's one of the few unexpected things I would enjoy so much. And so, yeah, Shion taking on Otsuka. As we said before, Otsuka's fought almost everybody in this tournament, more than once even. And he's only 34. He's not that old, surprisingly. Charles, you've seen Otsuka fight probably a million times in Deep, right?
Right, he's been around for a long time. Plus, he used to train at AACC, which is one of my favorite gyms to follow. So,
where's he train now?
He used to. I don't know. I don't know off the top of my head.
But yeah, he's fought at bantamweight, featherweight, lightweight. You know, he fought Rafael dos Anjos near the beginning of his career.
In what league?
I think it was one of the early Japanese leagues. I can't remember offhand.
Interesting.
But it was at lightweight, of course, and he didn't win Otsuka. Mm-hmm. But he didn't get finished by Dos Anjos, so credit to him. This is like Otsuka's, I think, his like 100th tournament he's been involved with. I think he's made basically his entire career being in tournaments of all kinds, and this is his second Rizin tournament. Jack, what do you think about this fight? And just, I don't think there's any more of discrepancy in terms of experience and how on fight style in this fight. It's almost like you couldn't get two more polar opposites with this fight.
Yeah, well, when we were talking about that last fight, I said that I wasn't really surprised that Kenta Takizawa was in the tournament. Honestly, I was actually sort of surprised that we got Takafumi Otsuka in this tournament. Something about his really long run recently in Deep Impact and now Shooto Japan, and him coming off, I think it was a title loss in Shooto Japan. Something about that just made me think that he wasn't going to be in this. So I was actually kind of shocked for him to be part of the 16-man lineup. This is a weird pairing. Like I said before, this is the risk you run with these doing these random number drawings, that you can just get really weird matchups. And on paper, this is a mismatch. But I mean, we'll see how it goes. It's the experienced veteran versus Shion, who has seemingly, his one fight in Rizin was extremely quick, and people have a reason to get behind him in this, so there won't not be interest in it. But if I had to have a pick, I would not pick him to win the fight. I can appreciate your wishes, though, Andrew.
Charles, what do you think? You've seen Otsuka fight many times. You've seen Shion, and the Kazuma Sonnen fight. I don't think that he was booked to win that fight. I think they were booking Kazuma Sonnen to win because he just came off that win off for Ishihara and Deep. So what do you think about this fight?
Well, I feel like you gotta kind of feel for Otsuka, because I feel like he's always been like a bridesmaid. He's always been second. I feel like he's never really broken out and kind of taken over anything he's been part of. He's always been one of the top fighters, but he's never been the top fighter. So I think it's kind of nice to see someone like him in the tournament, just from a respect angle. I was also kind of surprised he was in it, though, because he came off of that loss at Shooto almost immediately before. It was like probably the week or a couple of weeks before they actually announced the people in the tournament. So I was kind of surprised he was announced to be in it. But he's been such a staple of the scene for such a long time. He's kind of perennial top 20 guy in Japan for a very long time. So it's kind of nice to see him be in the tournament. And I expect him to win this fight, but I don't see him to be a tournament winner. To be honest, I don't see anyone on the Osaka tournament brackets being favorites to win in the tournament. And but it's just nice to see some people getting their due, getting some respect, and being in the tournament. It's like one of those things where it's just nice to see them involved.
I think Christian, you'll probably get this reference. I think Jim Cornette said this best about Triple H, and I'll paraphrase this in terms of Otsuka. Otsuka was always the guy who fought the guy.
Right.
If there's one thing I can add.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, Christian. You mentioned that now the people on this show are kind of the favorites in the tournament, and like I don't know how they're going to do it after this, but if Rizin had their way, they would probably match the people on this show against the people on the Tokyo show for the next round.
Mm-hmm.
I would agree. They
Go ahead,
definitely
Christian.
want the Naoki Inoue Kai Asakura final.
Oh, absolutely. Oh, definitely. Listen, Rizin is not hedging their bets on Xi'an versus Iminari, despite how much I would have loved for that to just be the. Imagine that is like the New Year's Eve main event: Xi'an versus Iminari.
You got to think about it. Iminari has to be, if you're trying to do this kind of matchmaking, Iminari has to be terrifying because he can just do that roll, and if he gets it, it's over. It's like not like a gut it out. So he always has the ability to end it at any second.
Yeah. Christian, we see, as Charles said, Otsuka's been around, forever. We just see Xi'an come off a win now, and now his record it went from 7-8 to 8-8, even record. What do you think about this fight? Do you think that Xi'an has any chance?
I would say yes, but considering the experience advantage, considering the fact that Otsuka went winless in Dream and lost out in 2 tournaments in that promotion, considering the fact that Otsuka he hasn't fought in Rizin in almost 4 years. And since then, he's lost to Victor Henry, who's a star on the rise, and Trevin 5-Star Jones, who's now fighting in the UFC, in addition to Yuki Motoya and Ryo Okada, who both fought recently, and in the case of Motoya for a long time in Rizin. I would have to say about Xi'an. Sorry.
Rude.
Sorry. I just don't think that Xi'an's going to win this fight, man. He's got way too much of an experience disadvantage compared to Otsuka. And in my case, considering the fact, and in the case of Otsuka, who's fought in 2 Dream Grand Prix and the Rizin 2017 Bantamweight Grand Prix, in which he lost in a close decision to Shintaro Ishiwatari, I think that Otsuka's fighting for redemption.
How cool to be though to just see this guy from Gratchen, who's had up and down career, and get the win over someone like Otsuka. You know what it'll be like? Remember recently when Hirotaka Nakata beat Issei Tamura at Pancras? Just the new guy coming in.
You know what? Our guy. You know what? You're right. Our guy Hirotaka Nakata did defeat the UFC veteran Issei Tamura, but that's in Pancras. We're talking about Rizin.
I want to see Xi'an win this so bad. It would just be I think it's just so much more interesting, the fights that can happen after. You kind of know what you're gonna get of Otsuka. Otsuka's kind of been just the same fighter for like the last few years. He's good at a little bit of everything, but not great. He's not the most exciting finisher. He can drag a fight out for 3 rounds if necessary. I don't know if Xi'an can go 3 rounds with someone like Otsuka. But here's the thing. Otsuka, I don't know how his chin is doing now, but Xi'an can knock him out. So I know that in the pre-fight videos and all that stuff, Otsuka was totally just like saying this guy is on my level, all that stuff. He better not take Xi'an lightly. He might be good. He might be the better fighter overall, but you can't teach power. And Xi'an, I think, has that over.
Yeah, you're saying that, but obviously, it comes down to experience. And in the case of Otsuka, he has plenty of it. I mean, I get that Shion is a star on the rise. I get that you're trying to ride his train in order to go in order for him to possibly go into title contention and reverse his fortunes from a 500 record all the way up to championship worthy in the case of fighting Kyoji Horiguchi. But obviously, Otsuka has had chance after chance after chance after chance of making his name in Rizin and Zest, and obviously he's a former Zest champion. But in Rizin and especially in Dream, and I do think that, if Otsuka wins this fight, he'll just be one step closer to redemption. Same thing for Iminari, even though they probably might fight different opponents in this next round. But if Otsuka loses, yeah, maybe it's time to hang up the purple tassels, put the gloves in the middle of the ring, and just go ahead on and retire. But I don't think that Otsuka's going to do that anytime soon.
Oh, no. Otsuka's going to be fighting forever. He'll listen, when Rizin has been completely dissipated and there's no more deep or pain, he'll find somewhere to fight. He'll even make his own fights if he has to. He's a fighter forever.
Oh, you mean like Shintaro? I mean, you mean like Satoru Kitaoka fighting in his own promotion?
Yeah, and I'll be willing to bet Otsuka and Ishitari will fight again for the 10th time sometime down the line. They're bound to clash heads at some point.
Of course. But
this has all happened before, and this will happen again.
Here's the thing, though. I basically said Otsuka is going to win this fight. I didn't say it was going to be via decision, even though, of course, Otsuka has 18 decisions of his own as far as wins go. But in my case, the only way for Otsuka to win this fight is that he would have to fight smart.
Mm-hmm. Oh, absolutely. No, absolutely. Charles, do you think that Shion has any way to defeat Otsuka in this fight?
Of course. He's shown they can knock guy out. And if you can knock somebody out, you can win any fight.
Jack, same thing? I see you nodding
your
head.
Same thing. I mean, he's not my pick to win, but I mean, if we traveled a day and ahead and you told me that he knocked him out in less than a minute and he landed a really good punch against a guy who has fought for an extremely long time, I would be like, yeah, that makes sense. So,
well, that's a fight I'm very interested to see. In terms of the
Plus, by the way, just to mention, Shion, all he knows how to do is knock people out. He's got 5 wins of his 8 via knockout. The other 3 are decisions, so he doesn't know how to submit anybody worth a damn. Oh, so yeah. That's why I say that Otsuka needs to fight smart.
Oh yeah, it's not going to be grappling. Will hopefully, if you want to talk about the surprising way to win, like jumping triangle choke by Shihan on Otsuka, won't happen, but it'd be funny if it did.
Yeah, it would be.
Speaking
but
of
probably be laughing
jiu-jitsu, I wonder if this next fight. I don't know if jiu-jitsu is going to really be a factor in this, given Yamaniha's background. If you've researched him at all or know about him, as we see here, Alan Hiro, Hiro Yamaniha from Banzai, currently the hottest gym in Japan, in my personal opinion, right now. Charles, you can agree or disagree with that. I think that Banzai is the gym to be paying attention to. Taking on sorry,
more of a team, I would say.
Gym team. Oh, okay. Taking on the human suplex machine, I'll call him Kazuma Kuramoto. I think an interesting fight, stylistically. Jack, what do you think about this fight? Did you happen to have any chance to see how Yamaniha's past fights?
Well, honestly, this fight out of the 4 in the tournament on this show, this one is the most intriguing one to me. This just seems like a matchup of 2 really good fighters who are, because of their lack, not in a derogatory way, but their lack of fights in Rizin, we don't know a ton about, but it has the potential to be an exciting fight. Before you ask me later on, because you will ask me later on, I don't have a pick for this one because this seems like a close fight in my opinion. Kuramoto, he's crazy. We know he can do crazy things in fights. And Alan is, as you mentioned, coming from a team gym, whatever you want to call it, that is the thing right now. I mean, especially coming off the last Rizin show. So, out of the 4 fights in the tournament, this is the biggest one in my opinion. Similar to last show when we had the Inoue fight. I think that was the biggest one on that card. This is very much that for Rizin 29.
Charles, what do you and your cat say about this fight?
That's a dog, actually.
Oh, I'm sorry. That was a dog. I just saw the body. I thought it was a cat. I just saw. Okay. My apologies, puppy.
No, she's fine. So about this fight, I'll agree with Jack. This is actually the most interesting fight of the tournament fights to me as well. I could see one of these guys actually, they all actually developing into a very solid fighter and kind of being a fighter of the future. Or some of the fights before this are kind of like homages to the past. It's kind of a nice way to describe them. And Kuramoto, high-level wrestler, married an Olympic gold medalist. So talk about the wrestling power couple. And Yamaniha, can we talk about this whole Team Bonsai thing where they go in the ring and introduce a
yes.
member of their gym, as if these people have never fought before? It's like, oh, there's this guy at my gym. His name's Yamaniha. You should give him a chance. Oh, this guy's got a ton of fights already. And we're like, Satoshi's like, oh, I got this guy named Clever Koike. I mean, I'm not going to say that he's the KSW champion, but you should give him a chance in Rising. Oh, he's got like 40 fights. I'm like, or actually, these guys have never fought before. Give them their debut. And it's like, oh, these are all established fighters.
Presuming that Yamaniha wins this, he has to introduce somebody from his gym as well. That's from his team. So that has to be the tradition with Bonsai. Every time they win, they have to say, hey, this is so-and-so. Please give him a chance. Because that's how he got into this tournament, basically. Was that Satoshi or was it Clever? Whoever introduced.
Yeah, it was Clever. Clever.
Yeah, was like, hey, give my friend a chance. And he gets into a tournament. Imagine if it was that easy for UFC, someone introduces like, oh, hey, this is my training partner. Give him a chance. And then UFC just signed them. Imagine how easy. Imagine that. It would never happen in UFC. That's why it's funny.
Speaking of tradition, I'm going to pick the Team Bonsai member to lose, as I have done for almost every Satoshi fight. and
you sure?
Been proven wrong repeatedly. What?
The last, we thought that Tofik was going to win. You sure?
I did. No, I said I've picked him to lose. I picked Satoshi to lose.
Yeah.
All of his. Yeah. I've picked him to lose every fight.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Sorry. Yes.
So I will keep that tradition going alive. I've picked Clever Koike to win, so I'm not going to count him. But I've picked Satoshi to lose. I'm going to put that on Yamaniha. He's not the grappler, in my opinion, that Clever and Satoshi is. And if he is, he hasn't shown it in the past. And Kuramoto's an absolute monster wrestling. And I think he's going to be able to choose where the fight takes place.
How many suplexes do you predict Kuramoto does?
I'm imagining what is it? Khabib Nurmagomedov numbers against the guy that he got like 30 takedowns with.
I need to see him hit a Three Amigos of German suplexes.
Exactly.
No. He suplexes him over the top rope.
I want to see his wife ringside giving him pointers and criticizing his form as he suplexes these guys.
Oh, that's too funny.
I need the crowd counting it like Brock Lesnar's German suplexes.
Exactly. Each knee.
Is it PC to bring up Chris Benoit, or is that still untalkable?
If you say Pegasus Kid, I think you can get away because they do say it on New Japan World. They do have Pegasus Kid. I don't think they have Chris Benoit though.
A certain Canadian wrestler who is known for his German suplexes.
Yes. Oh, Bret Hart you're talking about? Oh,
exactly.
Chris, what do you think about this fight?
Well, I mean, I'm thinking what we're all thinking. Well, most of us are thinking. I'm thinking that Yamaniha is going to win this fight in his Rising debut.
Really?
But who is at Bonsai Jiu-Jitsu who hasn't fought in Rising yet that would be worthy of being called out? Because I'm looking at his Tapology page right now. You don't see it, obviously. But I'm looking at his Tapology page right now, and there are only a few fighters of Brazilian descent for Banzai Jiu-Jitsu that haven't had fights in forever.
I'm trying. I don't know. So far, the two De Souza brothers fought. I don't know. I think there's a third brother as well. Isn't there a third De Souza brother?
I don't think the older brother's ever going to fight again. I think that was a one-off experiment.
You got Kleber. I don't know who else. I mean, Shrek has fought. I'm trying to think of who there's like who he would introduce if he wins this and be like, give my friend a chance. I don't know.
Is Suzuki still signed with ONE FC?
Oh, sorry. Charles, who's that deep fighter? Who's from Banzai? Oh, a Japanese fighter.
Oh, a Japanese fighter in deep?
Yeah. Deep Banzai Japanese fighter. I'm trying. I think he was on the most recent card as well.
Really?
I'll find this. But that's maybe like the next person who they could introduce to fight. I'll actually find them in a second.
But still, though, going back to my point,
yes,
I mean, I do think that Yamaniha is going to probably win this in a spectacular fashion, but you have to think about this. I mean, did any of y'all see the fight that Kuromoto had with Tayo the Sun Nakahara at Rizin 26 this past New Year's Eve?
No.
You saw that. It's on Rizin as a soccer.
Oh wait, yeah. Sorry, I'm looking up who that fighter is, so my brain is like going to the place. Yes, I did. Yeah, I did.
You can't be on the Rising podcast and openly admit you didn't watch the New Year's Eve
You must
show.
step down immediately.
Oh God, I'm canceled. I'm canceled for life.
Yeah, but still, point of the matter is, what happened in that Kuromoto Nakahara fight was exciting because, of course, soccer kicks are fun. Soccer kicks equals unlimited violence. Violence, at least for this promotion, is good. But when it comes down to this particular fight, you know, Kuromoto and Yamaniha, I don't think Kuromoto's going to be, I mean, yeah, I get that he has one loss on his record. That was to Ryo Okada, but still, I don't think that he's going to be taking this fight lightly. Neither is Yamaniha, and I do think it's going to be a hell of a firefight. I just don't see Kuromoto winning is all.
So the fighter's name that I was thinking of is Takumi Suzuki. Does that name sound familiar, Charles?
Look it up.
I think he was just on the deep card as well. The one that just one of the deep cards that just happened this past week. The thing about Yamaniha is, even though he's a bonsai guy, if you want, like, he does not have like the bonsai grappling background that the other guys have, like Kleber or even the two Souza brothers.
He's not the like instant death by submission if you go to the ground type of fighter.
If it went to the ground, I would even say you're probably better off. Because then you can worry about like ground and pounds, and you won't have to worry about any, like, if you try to ground pound Souza, oh God, that can lead to bad things. Charles, Takumi Suzuki fought Yuma Ishizuka at first rounds this past weekend.
Okay, and you're saying he trains with them at,
yes.
Well, that makes sense. Interesting.
He's a brown belt for bonsai.
Interesting. All right.
So that's the only other person who I could think of that Yamaniha could introduce if they want to continue this tradition. But no, I'm going to pick Kuromoto for this fight. Yamaniha is a good fighter. I've seen a bunch of his fights. But again, he's good, but not. I don't think he has enough of a pedigree that can be any trouble for Kuromoto. Kuromoto, much more explosive. He's like a rhino. That's what I wrote about in the my Rizin preview for MMA Sucker. I think Kuromoto's like a rhino that just keeps coming at you, and he doesn't get tired. He doesn't seem to sweat. He doesn't seem. It seems like the longer the fight goes on, the more it goes in his favor. And he's a monster. He knows. Listen, if he's got his wife yelling at him, that'll probably be extra motivation because he don't want to go home and get slapped by his Olympic gold medalist wife. Yeah, no, I think this is Kuromoto's fight to win. I'm hoping that we do see suplexes. Hopefully not outside the ring. Hopefully no one's neck gets broken or anything. But I definitely think that this is Kuramoto. I think Kuramoto can. I think he can make very much quick work of Yamaniha. He doesn't have to worry about the grappling. I don't think that Yamaniha can knock out. It's not Rio. Doesn't have the knockout power like Ryo Okada has. To knock him out. Yeah, I think Kuramoto can finish by round 1 this fight, and then go celebrate with his wife after for at some yakiniku, or what's the Osaka dish? Is that Okinawa-yaki?
Okonomiyaki, yeah, very
Yes.
good.
Yes. He can go out and celebrate with his wife with some Okinawa-yaki. Now the last fight, I guess the unofficial main event or the advertised co-main event, whatever you want to call it. We got Kintaro taking on Gratchen Bantamweight champion Kuya Ito. I'm a big fan of Kintaro. I gotta admit. Jack, what do you think about this fight, and how do you think this fight goes?
This is a neat fight. One thing that I'll be completely honest, I don't know much about Ito, but one thing that's really interesting about him when looking at his record is that his the start of his career, the most recent fights in his career, day and night. He had a disastrous start to his career, losing like 6 out of 7 fights or something like that. I'm sort of paraphrasing here, but in recent years he's been on an absolute upswing, and to even compare him to how he was at the start of his career doesn't even seem fair, honestly. So just seeing that on paper makes me interested to see how he'll do here. And Kintaro, we've seen him before. You know, this is to me an interesting fight.
Charles, what do you think about this fight?
I agree, and I agree with everything Jack said. It is kind of like a very uniquely Japanese MMA thing to see a guy lose all of his opening fights, then turn it around, which just tells you that his coach probably threw him into these fights in the very beginning, just saying this is the best way to gain experience. But it is kind of interesting too that Rising seems to be developing like this sub brand. They have like Osaka version of Rising, where they have like all these heavily tattooed like outsiders-esque fighters that they put on all of their Osaka cards of Koji, and they're all the fighters that talk all the trash and say all the funny stuff on Twitter. So it's kind of funny to see that developing. And Kentaro is kind of the embodiment of that. I mean, covered in tats and not airable on Fuji TV at all. And so it's going to be fun to see. And Kentaro's got a lot of fans. He's very popular. And I think this is his fight to win. But I mean, if Ito wins, I mean, talk about really turning your career around. That'd be absolutely nuts.
Is the tattoo thing an Osaka thing or an outsider thing, or is it a little bit of both?
Well, I would say it's more of like a thug thing, like a thug / Yakuza thing. And outsiders, I believe, had a lot of Yakuza influences in where they got their fighters from. And so it's definitely, there's like the whole amount of you aware that's the whole thing about tattoos in Japan. And that's very, very Yakuza-esque tattoos that Kentaro has. Not saying anything about that. I don't believe he's in the Yakuza, but he's definitely had like some sort of thug or street or kind of like tough guy life in his past.
I asked him in our interview about his origins of the Kintaro nickname, and he was very coy on the answer. So I'm a little bit. I kind of have a feeling I know who gave him that nickname. I'm pretty sure he didn't want to, or what group gave him that nickname. Maybe he was not. I'll just leave it at that, because I was very curious. Because you go by your nickname like Shian does. Listen, I want to know why you go by that name. And yeah, he was just said, "Oh, I was given that name early in my career. I prefer not to say who gave that nickname to me." I was like, "Oh, okay, I get what you're saying." So being that's not on Fuji TV, he won't have to wear a rash guard like he did for I think it was a Takizawa fight. We'll get to see him in his full tattooed glory. Have you ever seen the fight that he had in Pancras, where he knocked out that guy with the kick and then
Sunemura? It was Toshinori Sunemura, and it was a Chiseled Adonis highlight as well about it.
Have you seen that fight, Charles? And did you see the post? Like he still beat him up after the referee tried to get like in between, or he was trying to beat him up still.
Yeah, he's doing his best Sidario impression. You mean?
Yeah. Oh, have you seen that before?
I have not. No.
Oh, okay, because I was curious if you maybe knew the backstory behind that, because I didn't get to ask him that when I talked to him. Yeah, Chris, what do you think about this fight? We've seen, Kintaro's last fight didn't go the way that he did, but he's insanely popular. He's from Osaka, so it obviously makes sense why you would put him on the card. But Kui Ito is kind of on a streak in Gretchen.
And not to mention, we've seen Ito before for Brawl International.
Yeah, but he lost that fight, and that's not like part of that's not part of his, I guess, Gretchen streak, I'll say. So I'll give him one loss. He had to travel to Guam. Listen, it happens. But other than that, he's been undefeated in Gretchen for a while. So how do you think this fight goes? Do you think Kui Ito can drag Kintaro through so the way I see is that Kintaro always goes to that first round knockout, that first round finish. If it doesn't happen the first round, then you can get a little bit more. You can get a little bit more challenging with him, with Kintaro, because I think his power kind of diminishes after. I think he kind of just almost goes to that first round finished almost to a fault, and then he's not the same after that first round. So do you think Kuya Ito can survive the first round and possibly get a win in this?
I would like to think so, because anything to avoid being made into a first round highlight and another Chisel Adonis video. but still, when it comes down to the rest of the fights, I just don't see, Kuya Ito surviving because what round did he lose that Sangwon Kim fight in? Second?
I think no, because remember it was all wasn't it all like first? No, I think it was first round. I think it was the first round.
Yeah, right. Of course. But the point of the matter is, Kuya Ito's a star in Gachan, but I just don't see, Kuya surviving the second round. I mean, if he survives the first round, he's going to have to fight smart. He's going to have to fight calculated. He's going to have to fight, how can I put this? He's going to have to fight like the last sumo wrestler looking for the hot pot. Looking for Chunko. But still,
go ahead.
It's going to be pretty interesting to see. I mean, this fight is definitely going to be something worth, getting your money's worth for. Whether or not Kintaro Masakiri, a.k.a. Yuto Hokamura, wears a rash guard or not, because this fight, I think, might be shown on Fuji TV, because, of course, it's the co-main event. Why wouldn't it be? But still, I think Kintaro's going to win this fight via second round knockout, second or third. And I think that Kintaro is probably going to be my favorite to, if not win this tournament, then damn sure make it to the finals.
I'm going to work my way backwards. Charles, I will pick a prediction for this fight.
Kintaro take it TKO first round.
Jack?
Yeah, I'll say that too. Yeah.
Yeah, I think
I'm not so sure about winning the whole tournament. I'm not a betting man, or I used to be a betting man. Then I lost a lot of parlays on Bet365, and now I'm not a betting man.
So you were a real betting man.
Listen,
but if I was a betting man, I wouldn't bet on him to win the fight.
If Sakakibara wants to bring Rizin to the next level, he has to partner with DraftKings. That's what he's got to do.
Nah, he's gonna probably end up partnering with Bally Sportsbook or something.
Or whatever, the Mayweather's casinos that he's opening in Japan, or whatever that thing was.
Really?
Point of the is, this is a fight that's going to probably make a lot of degenerate gamblers feel odd, thinking, why didn't I bet this fight?
I don't think you this fight do any sites offer Rizin odds? Do any sites even offer Rizin odds?
No.
I mean, I don't know. Considering the fact that you're in Canada, does Ontario and Manitoba offer betting odds?
I mean, it depends. Like, there's like something, I don't know. I can give you a really boring answer later.
Yeah. Let's save that for when we get off air, okay? I don't want anybody to, get upset over that. But still, point of the matter is this fight's definitely going to be something. And CJ, you got any thoughts about that?
I mean, if you told me Ito wins, I wouldn't be surprised. The guy's been on quite a hell of a turnaround in his career. If he wins, I mean, I expect him to get a heavy push. But Kintaro is, as I said, they kind of like their own Osaka brand of fighters they can't show on TV, but are really popular. And I think Kintaro is an example of that. It's him, Ren Hiramoto, and guys like that.
Oh yeah, I think Kintaro wins this easily by knockout. I don't even know if he'll go past the first round. Kuya Ito doesn't strike me as an exciting fighter. If he win, I know that his last fight didn't go his way in Kintaro, but I'm hoping that he realizes what he made as a mistake and that mistakes he made in that fight. And I don't think that Kuya Ito can give the same type of problems that Takizawa did. With that being said, that's the entire card of Rizin. I just want to give opportunities for everybody to plug everything.
You know what? You forgot to ask one thing, though.
What's that?
Who do you think is going to be... No, what fight do we think is going to be exciting out of both the kickboxing and MMA fights? And what fight do you think is going to... I mean, basically, what fight do you think is going to be... Oh, I see. You have to head out, so... Yeah, let's go ahead and wrap this up. First of all, plug your shit. Second of all, who do you think is going to be the most exciting fight?
So, Jack, we'll start with you.
Well, first of all, thanks for having me on again, guys. I guess what to plug is I have an MMA news article site, knockdownnews.com. I recently launched a Twitter for it, at Knockdown News on Twitter, if you want to follow that. Or if you just want to follow me, my Twitter is Jack Wannan, so JACKWANNAN. And I think my 2 performance of the night bonuses are going to go to Yusuke Yachi and Shion. And then my fight of the night, I don't know why there's like a waterfall going on behind me. My fight of the night is going to be the kickboxing Taiju Shiratori versus Koji.
Charles?
Hey, yeah, so thanks for having me on again. It's been a lot of fun. It was nice talking to Jack as well for the first time. I have my own website, Sogo-Kaku. We tend to focus mainly on some of the Japanese stuff, so do some interviews, trying to put some spotlights on some of the up-and-comers. Fights, I think fight of the night, exciting. I'm going to go with Kuramoto Yamaniha. And I think I agree with Jack that Yachi's probably also going to be a crazy fight. I think there's too many variables in the kickboxing tournament to even see like if the exciting fights will even happen. So I'm going to go with the safe bet and say Kuramoto and Yachi.
Chris?
Well, Andrew, what about you? You're the one that got to leave.
Oh, okay. So I honestly think that, listen, Koji always puts on interesting fights, win or lose. I think him versus Omeno stylistically is an incredibly interesting fight from the kickboxing fight. Out of the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, out of the 6 kickboxing fights, potentially 7 for the main event. As for the main event, listen, I'm all on Xian. I want to see this guy go forward. He's not the best fighter, but he's my favorite fighter right now, and someone who and it's something I look really forward to. Because listen, if we get a Cinderella story out of this will be the second best Cinderella story. Him advancing, first obviously being Brandon Moreno.
Of course. So I guess that leaves me. Well, first of all, I think that the most exciting fights of the night, and I say that plural. I mean, I say that in plural because it does mean fights. The most exciting fights of the night are definitely gonna be a part of that kickboxing tournament that's gonna happen. All 3 of those fights, the 2 tournament fights and the main event. So those are going to be something to watch. But as I see now, Andrew just deserted off the screen.
No, I'm here. I'm just gathering up my things. Sorry.
I know. Point of the matter is, CJ, Jack, thank y'all for being a part of the show. We really appreciated you. We really appreciated you guys. And if y'all want to do the review of this show, y'all more than welcome to join us.
I gotta talk to my manager about that.
Oh, that sucks.
I'll talk to Jack's manager too.
But hey, Jack, you're gonna have to talk to us about that, little betting thing. If not off air, definitely in the DMs. But still,
Sure.
Point of the matter is, and let me go ahead and plug this show now. If you're listening to this, if you're watching this, that means you got about 15 hours. No, you got about 13 hours before this fight card happens tonight. If you're listening to this after the fact, please do yourself a favor. Go to live-now.com. Search for Rizin. Check out the package bundle for both Rizin 28 and 29. It's $25 worth of great fighting action you will definitely want to see. You will not be left out. You will not be left dissatisfied. You will not be disappointed. But as far as tonight goes, you got to focus on the bantamweight division. You got to focus on the lightweight division. You got to focus on the flyweight division and a couple of special attraction fights as well. The fight card will kick off, at least in this time zone, the U.S. and Canada, at, 12:30 p.m. 12:30 a.m. Eastern, 9:30 p.m. Pacific. Right, Andrew?
Yeah, from 12:30 a.m. from
That's the time, yeah.
Yeah, 12:30 a.m. Eastern for those like Jack and Andrew, 11:30 p.m. Central for myself, 9:30 p.m. Pacific, my apologies, all taking place on live-now.com. But above all that, we thank y'all for joining us on another special edition of the We Are Rizin podcast. You can follow CJ Charles Jewett on Twitter at CJ_Sogo-Kaku, right?
That's it.
You can follow Jack Wannan at Jack Wannan or at Knockdown News. You can check out Andrew on Twitter at abenja1 and follow his reports on MMAsucker.com at MMAsucker, by the way. You can follow me on Twitter at ChrisGary92. The show handle is at We Are Rizin Pod, WeAreRizinPod, all in one word. And you can also check out this podcast on Stitcher, SoundCloud, obviously subscribe to our YouTube channel, Podbean, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your favorite podcast of choice. And don't forget to follow Focus Fights as well on Twitter at Focus_Fights, and subscribe to our YouTube channel and like our Facebook page as well. But above all that, we thank y'all for checking out this very special edition of the We Are Rizin podcast. We are thankful to be a part of the We Are Rizin Nation, and we are thankful that you are enjoying some great Japanese combat sports with us. For Jack Wannan, Charles Jewett, Andrew Benjamin, and our little crack crew of engineers and people that put this show together, I'm J. Christian Gary, a.k.a. the Chillmeister, saying peace, my peoples, in one love world. We'll see y'all next time with the Rizin 29 review. And until then, as the great Lenny Hart always likes to say, hold on.